Good evening, everyone. We have some speaker adjustments, so we'll get to that, but thank you for your patience. Today is February 12th, and we are convening meeting number 03-24, and I want to welcome some very special guests. We have a packed house. For those who are not here in the room, we are joined by Boy Scout Troop number 928. They asked some very smart questions and learn about our city, and they're going to be helping to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, please come forward to the front and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good job, guys. Well done. We love having City Hall filled with young people and people of all generations, and we hope that you come back. We'll now move to agenda item number 3. Madam Clerk, agenda review.
Madam Mayor and council members, there was a revision to the online agenda. We added 3 additional items to agenda item number 12. And we also just wanted to let you know that we referenced the 90-day outlook under the monk agenda as well.
Thank you very much. And for those who are interested, we have more detail provided on the governor's housing package that was introduced, and we'll be talking about that later today. City Manager's report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. With the planning process for the FY 2025 budget well underway, we encourage all members of the community to participate in the process by taking the Community Budget Priority Survey, which is available on our website until April 12th. Budget public hearings will take place on March 18th and April 8th. The public's input enhances the quality of the final product and gives added direction and purpose to our work as public servants. We are grateful for everyone who has already taken the survey and those who plan to actively participate in future steps of the budget process. The Recreation and Parks Summer Camp Guide is now available, and registration opens this coming Thursday, February 15th at 8:30 a.m. Don't wait too long because some camps fill up quickly. A limited number of scholarships for program fees are available for residents of the City of Rockville ages 18 and younger. For the summer camp season, the fund will cover $175 maximum per child for each camp session, up to a maximum of $1,000 per child. For more details on summer camps, visit the city's website and search summer camps. On a related note, the hiring process has begun for summer staff at the Rockville Swim and Fitness Center and for Recreation and Parks camps. Training is available for those interested in becoming a lifeguard or swim instructor. For more details and to apply for these and other summer positions, please visit the city's website. I'm pleased to report that our Department of Public Works continues to convert the city's fleet to cleaner and more fuel-efficient vehicles in support of the Climate Action Plan. The fleet now includes 16 battery electric vehicles, 1 plug-in hybrid vehicle, and 3 hybrid vehicles. Rockville residents in grades 1 through 5 can register for the Terrific Bike Award program to get a free bike by taking the Terrific Challenge. Participants show that they are trustworthy, earnest, respectful, responsible, involved, fair, industrious, and caring, hence the word terrific, by performing 6 good deeds such as volunteering with a charity, picking up litter in a public place, or helping someone who is sick or elderly. Register for this free program through Recreation Parks by Friday, February 16th. And finally, in observance of President's Day, next Monday, February 19th, many city facilities, including City Hall, will be closed. All recycling, trash, and yard waste collections will occur 1 day later than usual next week. More details are available on the website. Thank you, and this concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you very much. Council members, do you have any questions or comments? Councilmember Larry.
So, you mentioned the budget survey. Do you have an update on the responses that we've received to see if we have moved the needle at all in regards to what areas of the city or what demographic we need to concentrate on, address, and make sure that they are represented in the responses?
We have provided one update, I think it was as the end of December, and
Okay.
we promised further ones, so I'll have to get back to you on exactly when we'll have the next update for you.
Okay, I would appreciate, and Madam Mayor, I defer to you, but because we have such a short budget window, we do need timely updates on whether or not all parts of the city are being represented. So I would like to make that suggestion going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I'm just going to show the budget survey QR code. Please feel free to fill it out. You can help us. We want to make sure all parts of the city are represented. I say it often. We read every line, and we welcome all feedback. I wanted to also note that we are going to be talking about some proclamations, but the city is undertaking a variety of things related to Black History Month, and we have some Lunar New Year celebrations happening this Saturday. Please visit our city website and explore Rockville to learn about those events. And we have a range of positions that are posted, including some residents have asked us to note when the city manager position is posted, and we just wanted to note that is online and live now. Thank you to our acting city manager, Craig Simino. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing and the great reports on sustainability and the other updates as well. All right, so we're now going to move to proclamations and recognitions. We do have 4 declaring Lunar New Year, American Heart Month, National African American History Month, as well as the 40th anniversary of Pinnenberg, Germany's sister city corporation.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? Yeah, I'm so excited to read this proclamation. Of note, CCACC had a Lunar New Year celebration this past weekend at Montgomery Mall. I was happy to be there and represent the city there. We have a couple events happening here this weekend. I think the Lunar New Year Festival is happening, or celebration is at Rockville High School at 10 o'clock. And then the Lantern Festival will be at 1 p.m. at F. Scott Fitzgerald this weekend, Saturday. So packed events, please come out and enjoy. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'll read the proclamation. Rockville is home to a diverse Asian community that adds to the richness and culture of our great city. And whereas the Lunar New Year and Lantern Festival are special holidays for family reunions, Thanksgiving and well-wishing are 2 of the most significant celebrations for Asian communities around the world and here in Rockville. And whereas the lunar calendar is based on a combination of lunar and solar movements, the second new moon after winter solstice marks the beginning of the new year, and it is determined to begin on February 10th, 2024, and the Lantern Festival will occur this year on February 24th, 2024. And whereas the city of Rockville is committed to recognizing Asian culture as an important part of the city and its strong, inclusive community. And whereas this year of the dragon, one of the zodiac animals, and represents people who are charismatic, intelligent, confident, powerful, and naturally lucky and gifted. They are believed to be inspiring natural leaders and tend to do everything to the best of their ability with high standards. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Rockville, Maryland, do hereby proclaim February 10th, 2024 as Rockville's celebration of the Lunar New Year, culminating with the Lantern Festival on February 24th, 2024, and call upon all the residents of Rockville to join in this joyous observance. With that, Madam Mayor, I move the proclamation.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand.
I think we have somebody receiving.
Yes, we do.
Mr. Hill? Awesome.
Thank you very much.
You, sir.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am honored to enter the proclamation for American Heart Month. Whereas, in American Heart Month, we recommit to fighting this disease by promoting better health, wellness, and prevention awareness in our communities. And whereas, heart disease continues to be a leading cause of death in the United States, it affects Americans of all genders, races, and ethnicities. And whereas, heart disease can impact anyone, but risk factors such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, physical inactivity, tobacco use, obesity, and alcohol drug abuse can increase the likelihood of developing the disease. And whereas, in Maryland as well as nationwide, heart disease remains the leading cause of death for women, and something as simple as walking at least 30 minutes 6 days per week can reduce the risk of dying from a heart attack by 50%. And whereas, the death rate from heart attacks has risen dramatically during the COVID-19 pandemic, as people are delaying or not seeking care after experiencing symptoms. It is important not to ignore early warning signs like chest pain, palpitations, shortness of breath, and sudden dizziness. And whereas Americans can promote health and prevent disease and illness by taking simple steps to improve their physical, mental, social, and spiritual health, by not smoking, eating nutritious meals, being physically active, and receiving regular medical checkups. And whereas we honor the healthcare professionals, researchers, and heart health advocates who save our lives with their hard work. Every day, they put themselves on the front lines of our fight against heart disease, as well as the fight against the cold and flu season during the pandemic. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of Rockville, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 American Heart Month and encourage the community to engage and to keep up to date on news and activities that will benefit the health and well-being of our families. I move the proclamation. All right. Dr. Merle, second. All those in favor? Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to co-present the proclamation, Madam Mayor, with you as well as with Councilmember Miles. Whereas, in 1976, Black History Month, later changed to National African American History Month, was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of African American history. And
whereas, because of their determination, hard work, intelligence, and perseverance, African Americans have made valuable and lasting contributions to the city of Rockville and to our country, achieving success in all aspects of society, including business, education, politics, science, and the arts. And whereas, during National African American History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past and present successes and challenges of African Americans, as well as look to the future to continue to improve society. We are reminded to embrace the ideas of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And
Whereas we are proud heroes, pioneers, and leaders such as Dr. Martin Luther King, Jesse Owens, Thurgood Marshall, who walked through this city, Dr. Mae Jemison, Dr. Charles Drew, and many recent notable African Americans such as astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, President Barack Obama, Vice President Kamala Harris, Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman, and Kazmika Corbett, who led the team that researched and developed the COVID vaccine. Their achievements have contributed to American promise, enriching our lives, and served as models for leadership. We are especially proud of Maryland's first African American Governor, Wes Moore, and whereas the 67th Mayor and Council of Rockville is the most diverse council in Rockville's history. As the first BIPOC female mayor and diverse council in many intersections.
Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of Rockville, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the month February 2024 to be National African American History Month and encourage the Rockville community to learn about, share stories, recognize, and appreciate the many contributions made by African Americans throughout this region, and to participate in many educational events honoring the contributions of African Americans throughout the month. I move the proclamation.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you.
We have somebody accepting. Rebecca Murphy from the Human Rights Commission.
No, I wanted to introduce Miss Rebecca Murphy from the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you. This is not just a moment to celebrate the accomplishments and contributions Black people have made to the city of Rockville. This is a reminder for all of us to reflect on what we can do to address the disparities that still exist in our community, not just for these 28 days, but throughout the year. We cannot erase historical injustice, but each of us has a part to play in addressing the effects of it today. I am proud to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Rockville Human Rights Commission. Thank you. Thank you.
We now have a proclamation to honor the 40th anniversary of the Pinneberg Sister City Corporation. So I know we have two members of the Rockville Sister Cities Corporation, David Hill and Drew Powell, if you guys would come up. And I think it's important to note that the Rockville, Maryland will be sending a delegation later this month to Pinneberg, Germany to help celebrate this momentous 40th anniversary of Pinneberg's Sister City Corporation. I'm proud to make this proclamation because I actually remember in 1986 when the Rockville Sister City Corporation was founded, I believe the mayor was a man named Stephen Van Grack. So I'm proud to be able to make this proclamation on behalf of the city of Rockville. And I understand we're going to be bringing this proclamation to Pinneberg, Germany later this month, right? That's right. Excellent. So whereas Rockville, Maryland, USA, and Pinneberg, Schleswig-Holstein, Germany, started a sister city relationship in 1957. This is among the earliest sister city agreements in President Dwight D. Eisenhower's people-to-people program to promote world peace and friendship. Whereas engaging in the sister city relationship has long been a touchstone of city culture and a benefit to its citizens. And whereas in 1984, the citizens of Pinneberg founded the citizen-driven organization Deutsche Amerikanische Gesellschaft Rockville Pinneberg e.V., DAGRP, under the leadership of Dr. Hermann Nolte, who became its first president. Whereas in 1986, Rockville founded the Rockville Sister City Corporation as a comparable citizen-driven organization to the DAGRP. The combination of these organizations was aligned to the people vision that started Sister Cities, reinvigorated our interaction, and continues to conduct our Sister City programs. Whereas in 2024, DAGRP celebrates its 40th year anniversary and the continued Sister City relationship between Pinneberg and Rockville. Our cities have kept a long connection all these years, sustained through the DAGRP and RSCC organizations. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the it says of the Rockville, but it should be of Rockville, on behalf of its citizens, do proclaim congratulations to our Sister City friends in Pittsburgh, Germany, on the 40th anniversary of the DAGRP, and share in the spirit of celebration with this organization and the durable connection of our Sister City relationship. I now move for this proclamation.
I second.
It's been seconded by Councilmember Jackson.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I think it's unanimous. Do a picture? Oh, let's roll. You guys want to say?
Just quickly.
Yeah.
Councilmember Van Grack referred to this, but we are sending two representatives, former Mayor Stephen Van Grack and our President Emeritus of RSCC, Drew Powell. And in consideration of their traveling, representing the city on their private expense on a fairly substantial trip, I want to hand off to Drew.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Be my pleasure. So real quickly here, if I may. What an amazing journey. Just 12 years after World War II and 1 year after the establishment of President Eisenhower's Sister City program, the Rockville-Pinneberg Sister City relationship was founded. I think it was like the third in the country. That was more than 66 years ago. In the 1980s, both Pinneberg and Rockville mayors and councils established commissions to manage and maintain their sister city relationships. Before, and especially since then, literally hundreds of cultural, educational, and governmental exchanges have been successfully undertaken. Dozens of joyous local events involving Rockville's diverse cultural communities have been held. In order to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Rockville Sister Cities' companion organization, the Deutsches Amerikanische Gesellschaft Rockville-Pinneberg, you did a very good job with that, by the way, or DAGRP, former Rockville Mayor Stephen Van Grack and I, as RSCC President Emeritus, will travel to Pinneberg later this month. It will be our honor to present this prestigious Rockville proclamation to the DAGRP and the city of Pinneberg. The Rockville Sister City Corporation will continue to facilitate exchanges with both Rockville sister cities, Pinneberg, Germany, and Ilan City, Taiwan, which hopefully will include yet another student exchange with Richard Montgomery High School's Jazz Ensemble, heading to Pinneberg, the Pinneberg Jazz Festival in August of this year. As he is doing much of the heavy lifting these days, I would like to acknowledge RSCC's new president, Mr. David Hill, who's doing a fantastic job taking Rockville's Sister City program and relationships to the next level. Just as Sister Cities International motto says, connect globally, thrive locally, President Hill and the Rockville Sister City Board of Directors are doing just that with the many international exchanges and large-scale local events sponsored every year, such as one such event is RSCC's annual Rockville Lantern Festival this weekend. You heard about it already. Saturday, February 17th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Rockville's F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater. This free, family, and kid-friendly event is open to all. Performances start at 2. Thanks to Rockville's mayor and council, city staff, the Rockville Sister City Corporation, board of directors and general membership, as well as the citizens of Rockville for helping to make Rockville's Sister City program one of the best in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, see you inside.
All right, up we go.
See y'all.
I figured you missed it.
All right, thank you very much. We have lots to celebrate and lots of diversity in our great city. Thank you to my colleagues for an excellent job on the proclamations and recognitions. Next, we are going to be moving over to Community Forum, and I invite you to come. You have 3 minutes each. I'll call you by name. We have Dick Rosano. Mr. Rosano, you here? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you, Madam Mayor and the Council. I wish you a good evening. So I'm going to offer an idea proposal that involves service of terms on the City Council. Throughout government, continuity of government and knowledge transfer depends a lot on the experience that is from the past that's brought forward into the future. Staggered terms are used often in other governments. For example, our other sister city, Gaithersburg. It's used in, I spent my career in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, where there are 5 commissioners. Each year, one of those commission seats goes vacant and is filled with a new one, so there's always knowledge transfer. Even the United States Senate has a cycle where 1/3 of the seats are up for election every 2 years. What I'm proposing for Rockville is that we try to adopt a system like that, so that every 2 years, half of the seats on the council will come up for election. I recognize that there's a one-time only changeover to that, and I've tried to describe one option to accomplish that in this proposal that I've given to the clerk that you'll be able to see afterwards. The idea being that once we do this one-time only transfer, we would be able to establish 4-year terms for every council member, but every 2 years be able to elect or at least vacate 3 seats and choose to elect either the same people or new ones. That would ensure continuity of government. It would ensure that the lessons learned in the past can be carried over into the future, and we would have more knowledge transfer. And by the way, none of this has anything to do with the current council members. I researched your bios extensively before the election, and I think I voted for every single one of you. But I'm pleased that you're here, and I also don't want to lose what you have. Yet at the same time, this year, of all years, we faced a unique situation where we have 5 new council members. It is a demonstration of how troublesome and possibly difficult it can be to carry on our work from the past into the future when we have a council made up of, what's the term, all freshmen? Again, with all due respect, because I know how much experience and knowledge you bring to the job. But I also think it's important that as a city, to serve the interests of our citizens and the future, that we have staggered terms so that we refill half of the council every 2 years, and that we make sure that knowledge transfer takes place for the citizens of Rockville. That's the proposal. I have given copies of it to the clerk, and she will share them with you at the right time. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing the proposal.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next, we welcome Hannah Wald.
Hello, good evening. I'm Hannah Wald. I'm here on behalf of Don't Widen I-270, and you may have met me or heard me speak before. I guess you know what I'm here about because of who I'm here on behalf of. I actually live in the Woodley Gardens area, very close to I-270. I can see the I-270 sound barrier from the back of my house. It's very close by. But even if you don't live as close to I-270 as I do, if you live in Rockville or anywhere in Montgomery County, it's going to have a big impact on you. And the reason is that when the budget for the project was initially drawn up, they neglected to include the cost of stormwater remediation, which is basically extra drainage and building more capacity in the sewers for stormwater runoff, if it rains a lot, which it is, doing more increasingly these days and will do more in the future. I think we've all noticed there's, more strong storms, more flooding as time goes on because, there's more asphalt and it rains on the asphalt and it floods off the asphalt. And so if this isn't in the budget, who's going to pay for it? The answer is we are. We in MoCo and PG counties will pay in our WSSC bills. We'll see our water and sewage bills go way up for decades. We will be paying for this. Our children and our grandchildren will be paying for this at a time when the cost of living is already going up. And, we're already seeing a lot more flooding. And I know when we were going through our mayoral elections, climate change and remediation of climate change and flooding and how we were going to prepare for it was an issue. This is going to make that harder if the highway's expanded. It's going to be a flood risk. And also, with the way that flood remediation is handled in the highway project and the environmental impact, if it causes flooding risks or flooding damage, they don't have to repair it for us. They can repair or remediate it somewhere else along the highway or somewhere else in the state and say that they did their jobs. So, either way, in several ways, we're going to be paying for this and for a very long time, whether we use the highway or not. There's a lot of hidden and externalized cost. So that's kind of something to think about and something to, I think, be asking the state about. Thanks very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We welcome Marissa Scales of Rockville Science Center.
I brought a little entourage here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Melissa Scales, and I'm on the board of the Rockville Science Center, and I thank you for your support in the past. You might know yesterday, February 11th, is Super Bowl Sunday, but it was actually, it's actually better known as United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science Day. To commemorate this momentous occasion, Rockville Science Center is in the process of launching a series of STEM-related badges for Girl Scouts for various ages from kindergarten through high school. These badges include robotics, coding, cybersecurity, craft and tinker in our new makerspace, and home scientist and many others. Teaching these badges will be the esteemed professionals behind me, and I think it would be better if they introduce themselves. I'm going to actually start with one of our teachers who wasn't able to be here because she's actually doing a science experiment right now in her lab. Janelle Vasey earned her PhD in immunology from the University of Rochester, studying lung biology and influenza. After a postdoc at Cornell University studying T-cell development, she now works at AstraZeneca, working on ways to use the immune system to fight cancer. Want to go next?
Sure thing. Hi, my name is Rachel Buter. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Virginia Tech. I currently work on the installation of EV charging stations across the country.
Hi, I'm Zoe Weiss. I graduated from Harvard with a degree in molecular and cellular biology, and I'm currently a fellow at the NIH working in the Genetics Institute.
Hi, I'm David Delalio. I actually work right off of Shady Grove Road in biotech, and my degree is in manufacturing and design, and I've been with RSC for quite some time, so we're excited.
I'm Ulysses Santamaria, member of Board of Trustees, and day job is infectious disease researcher, also NIH.
Hi, I'm Evan Keto. I'm the new Makerspace manager, and I'll be teaching classes in woodworking and crafts.
Hi, I'm Abdeladim Al-Hamdani. I'm a neuroscientist. I manage and teach classes, workshop at the Rockville Science Center.
So thank you for your attention. We hope you'll spread the word about these amazing badges. Thank you.
Thank you. Just made the room a lot smarter. I will, while we're waiting for the next person, I'll also note that we have our own Queen's Gambit on Fridays at the Science Center, this chess club. We welcome Anita Summerhour. Welcome, Ms. Summerhour.
Good evening, Mayor Ashton and members of the council. I am here tonight to speak concerning Memory Walk Park and Lincoln Park. I am going to read from the invitation inviting the Lincoln Park community to the dedication of Memory Walk on Saturday, June 8, 1996. The Lincoln Park Civic Association joins the City of Rockville to announce a historic moment. We invite you to the dedication of an arts project at the corner of Lincoln and Douglas Avenues in Lincoln Park. A walkway will take us on a journey through time while reflecting our desire to protect and preserve ideals, family, faith, and quality of life. This project is about a people who continue to dream. What happened to Memory Walk in December 2023 when a contractor hired by and under the supervision of the city demolished the center section of Memory Walk is reprehensible. City staff has told the Lincoln Park Civic Association that the contractor was not authorized to do this work. How does the city handle a contractor who performs unauthorized work? Is this contractor licensed and insured? If the contractor has insurance, the contractor should pay for the replacement of the center section. On Saturday, Corinne Miller told the LPCA that a meeting is to take place to discuss the contractor with the president of the Lincoln Park Civic Association and city staff participating. I look forward to working with Corinne Miller to replacing the center section of Memory Walk and looking at the condition of the remaining stepping stones. After all the work is completed, there should be a rededication of Memory Walk.
Thank you. All right, I will be welcoming Boogie, who is the president of the Lincoln Park Civic Association.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Boogie Amadasu. I go by Boogie for those who have a hard time saying my first name, and I am the current president for the Lincoln Park Civic Association. And I just come to just introduce myself and to just let you guys know that we are here to be the voice of Lincoln Park. I think it's an amazing community, a historically black community, has rich history in Maryland. Me being an outsider moving in and kind of getting to know my neighbors and also Miss Summerhour and just learning more about the neighborhood, I just kind of want to be that voice and to work with the city to kind of improve our community and also East Rockville as well. Like what Ms. Summerall brought up about Memory Walk, I think is terrible what happened. And a lot of the elders feel, disenchanted by the city and what happened. And we're also looking forward to moving forward and working together and trying to improve upon what happened there. I know mistakes happen, and we're not trying to rake the city over the coals for it. But what we want to do is don't forget about us. Please think about us in your budgets. I know Corinne's working really hard. I know she's new on staff, but she's been very helpful coming to all our meetings and also explaining her basically apology for the city for what happened. So we want to move past that. We want to move forward, but also just think about other things that may happen around our community. Just keep us in mind. If not, I will be a fixture face, to kind of remind you guys about Lincoln Park. So thank you.
We welcome you as a fixture in this council, and also I just will note that we commit to making sure that the issues are addressed and that there is a rededication. Thank you for being here. And I'll just note there was a packed house at LPCA on Saturday. Congrats on your new role. Next we have Martine. Can't see the last name here. Sejor of Bank Shot Sports.
Hello. I wanted to express that not only does Bank Shot Sport advocate for the differently abled, but we also educate. And in most of our documents, there are key words in there that will help you with your decision making. And I'm here, and my name is Martine Sejur, and I have been asked by Jay Salazano, founder of CSAC, Community Services for Autistic Adults and Children of the Salzano Center for Autism in Montgomery Village. You might remember that I testified at the diversity hearing conducted by Rockville Mayor and Council some time ago. I emphasized what a treasure Bank Shot is and expressed my compliments to the community for installing such a system which achieves the inclusion and diversity missing elsewhere. I cannot imagine why we would even consider doing away with such a treasure. It may be well to point out that individuals with various levels of autism do well in sports that are without opponents or teams to defeat. But as in Bank Shot, participants play together and alongside one another, non-competitively, independently, without having to defeat one another. I'm also expressing my regret that one of the Bank Shot courts was removed rather than refreshed and refurbished and used for the benefit of the community, particularly the underdeserved. Such a move is going in the wrong direction, I would submit. Thank you for your attention to my remarks, and please come and visit the Bank Shot Play Court in King Farm when the residents at the Salzano Center are playing Bank Shot, which shows what can be done with such a concept of inclusion and diversity upon which Bank Shot is based. Thank you for your attention and your time.
Thank you. I believe there's a Bank Shot event coming up this spring.
Yes.
Okay. And it is free, and we welcome everyone to attend. And the city of Rockville is the only municipality, or that we have the only Bank Shot in Montgomery County. All right, that concludes who signed up in advance. Does anyone wish to speak? We will now close community forum, and we thank everyone for participating. We listened carefully and will be following up. We appreciate all of your attention here today and welcome others to come to future community forums. We'll now be moving to the Board of Appeals annual report. We have a presentation from city staff, Jim Wasilek, as well as other panelists and participants, Christopher Davis, Ricky Barker, Jenny Snap, and we have several members of the commission. Mr. Frankel, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Alan Frankel. It's always a pleasure to appear before you, and I love living in the city of Rockville. I am currently the chair of the Board of Appeals, and I don't see my other compatriots with me, but over here is Roy Deichman, and over here is Jimmy Hauer. So we have 3 members of the Board of Appeals. We also have an alternate, Nick Kuchek, who is resigning from his position to be able to take a job in Japan for 3 years. And I'll discuss that at the end of the presentation. I figure everybody can read it, so I'm just going to embellish on it a little bit. The Board of Appeals is a state-mandated board for each municipality or county that does zoning. And the city of Rockville has its own independent zoning done by its planning board and by the mayor and council. And what we do is we review and act on applications for special exceptions and zoning variances. Generally, a zoning variance goes to the land itself. That is, why do we need to vary from the zoning ordinance for a particular piece of property, and special exceptions generally go to the use of a structure that is on the property. Special exceptions generally only run to the owner of the current property, whereas zoning variances run with the land forever. We also review and act on appeals from administrative decision in accordance with the zoning ordinance. And in the number of years that I've been on the board, we have not had any appeals from administrative decisions. So the administrators must be doing their job well. All of the appeals from administrative decisions are done de novo, meaning it's a new hearing, regardless of what may have been presented before the administrator, and we consider everything we do in accordance with state law. We also conduct hearings on each and every matter that comes before us. These are public hearings. The public is welcome. They are broadcast on Rockville Channel 11, and you can find them online. In this past year, we reviewed and approved 3 special exception applications, and we reviewed 10 zoning applications, 9 of which were granted and 1 of which was denied. The other big thing we did this year is we changed our meeting dates from the 2nd Tuesday to the 3rd Wednesday to accommodate our members' schedules. During the coming year, we're going to do pretty much the same thing what we've done through the past years, and that is consider all application requests objectively, fairly, based upon the information and evidence presented or available. And at this point, I would like to give a kudo to Mr. Waslick and his staff for the incredible amount of information they provide us in their packets for each of the variances or special exceptions that we have. We allow our applicants to present application requests fully and completely. We hear and consider all cases based on the merits. We don't always agree, but it is generally a fair and relatively informal hearing, and we ensure that all case actions are based on required findings. As I indicated, our alternate, Nick Kuchek, is resigning from the board, and we're going to have to ask the mayor and council to appoint a new alternate. And if everybody were up with me tonight, you would see that we are the least diverse board or commission in the city of Rockville. We consist of 4 Caucasian men. So when you are considering applications for our alternate, I would ask that you look at women and people of color, people who are different. They do have to have some modicum of knowledge of real estate, although they can learn on the job. But it really is a very good place to be and to provide a necessary service for the Rockville community. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Franco. We appreciate all that you do. I know that the Board of Appeals is not an easy commission. Sometimes people are happy and sometimes they're not. And
Correct.
We appreciate that you make sure it's a fair process. You listen to every fact and make a deliberation. So thank you for that work, and please extend our gratitude to the rest of the commission. We also have noted your comments on a potential upcoming vacancy, and we'll take that to heart.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. Nice to see you all again. Anybody else?
Anyone have
Enjoy
questions?
your evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the commission for all of their work. Next, we have several consent agenda items. Does anyone want to pull one separately or have any particular questions? If not, we'll take them as a group, and I will entertain a motion to approve. Motion? Motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. Thank you. I will read them for the listening public. So we have item A, which is focused on a cooperative agreement with Centennial Contractors to deliver quantity construction contracts, including the open bay storage structure at the Rockville Maintenance Complex. Several of us have visited it, and it does need to be replaced. We're going to authorize the acting city manager to execute an amendment 5 to Memorandum of Understanding with the Maryland Department of Transportation, as well as an appointment of the Deputy Director of Community Planning and Development Services, Jenny Snap, as the City of Rockville representative to the Town Square Condominium Board, replacing Deputy Director James Woods. I'll entertain a second. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Thank you. It is unanimous. We'll move on to a briefing, agenda item 11, on the floating zone map amendment MAP 2024-00120 and project plan PJT 2024-00019, 5906 Halpine Road, a request to rezone the property from R60, which is a single unit detached dwelling residential zone, to RFFZ residential flexible zoning zone and permit construction of 36 2/2 stacked condominium residential units. I believe there's a staff presentation. All right, they're just working on a quick technical, and we'll be welcoming Staff Representative Christopher Davis. I'm going to call a 5-minute break just to allow the presentation to be pulled up. Is that what you need? Are you good? Okay, let's go. We'll take a break right after. Okay. Proceed. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
All right. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. For the record, Christopher Davis with Community Planning and Development Services. Happy to bring before you this application of a briefing for 5906 Alpine Road. It is the first application of the floating zone map amendment. It is MAP 2024-00120 and is accompanied by project plan application PJT 2024-00019. And just for the Mayor and Council's information, this is a briefing, so the purpose of the briefing is to introduce the project to the council and allow for opportunity for questions and feedback to staff and the applicant. So the project site is outlined on the screen before you in red. It is 5906 Alpine Road. As you can see from the aerial, the site is improved with a existing church building, which is approximately 9,000 square feet in size. It's accompanied by improvements with a on-site parking facility to the south and rear. As you can see from the surrounding uses, to the west, immediately abutting, is a townhouse community. To the north are single-family detached homes north of Alpine Road, and to the south and east are multifamily developments. So the applicant's project includes demolishing the existing church building and in its place developing the property with 36 2/2 stacked condominium units. As you can see from the applicant's site plan to the right, the units are proposed to be laid out in two consistent sticks and will be interrupted by our intervening private alley with access from Halpine Road. Part of the project includes rezoning the property from R60 to the RFFZ zone, which is the residential flexible floating zone. The request also includes the application of the MXNC development standards and also waivers to the side yard setback and layback slope. In terms of the timeline and project submissions for this project, the applicant began with a pre-application, also known as a PAM, filed in June of 2023. They also concluded their community area meeting in May of 2023. Following that pre-application phase, the project moved into formal submission occurring in October of 2023. And during that process, they have completed their post-application community meeting held last week, as well as a briefing before the Planning Commission. The project also did receive comments from staff at their applicant DRC meeting on February 8th. So the next steps for the process include finalizing review of the map amendment and project plan application, including feedback from the mayor and council this evening. The project will then move back to the Planning Commission for their recommendation on the map amendment and project plan, and then come back to you, mayor and council, for a public hearing, D&I, and an adoption of the project plan and map amendment applications. Following that process at mayor and council, the project will then move back to the Planning Commission for their consideration of a level 2 site plan, which has also been submitted by the applicant and is currently under review. So with that concludes staff's presentation, and with the permission of mayor and council, the applicant does have a presentation that they would like to present.
We welcome the applicant. Please state your name.
Good evening, Pat Harris with Lurcher and Brewer here on behalf of the applicant, Pulte Homes. I want to first introduce our team. With me this evening is David DeMarco, who's the Vice President of Acquisitions at Pulte, and Bobby Varner, who's the Land Planning and Entitlement Manager. We have our civil engineer, Mike Goodman with VICA, and then our traffic engineer, Katie Wagner with Grove Slade. As staff noted, we're proposing 36 2/2 residential units on the property, and I'm going to ask staff to assist me going through the PowerPoint here. So the property, as you've already been oriented to, is at the corner of Ardennes and Halpine. It's a 1.5 acre site, and it's currently the home of Twin Brook Community Church, which has realized over the past 5 years that their congregation is decreasing, and they made a decision back 5 years ago that they needed to find a new home and downsize. So they actively marketed the property. Pulte was the contract purchaser. And since that time, I'll just orient one very briefly. Next slide, please. So we have two pictures of the church next. And the Historic District Commission last month approved the demolition of the church. And then we have a existing plan on the next slide, which just shows the church surrounded by a sea of parking. You can see that the parking lot really extends to the property lines on the south and the east. So back 5 years ago, when the city was contemplating and starting to work on the comprehensive plan, the church was actively involved in that process. And then when Pulte became the contract purchaser, they became involved, and meaning there was outreach to the community, there was outreach to the then mayor and council, and also participation both at the Planning Commission and the mayor and council. I know I was before some of you then, to advocate for the comprehensive plan recommendations for the site. With that, and I'll go to the next slide, when Pulte originally was selected to be the contract purchaser, they were proposing a condominium project on the site. It was 65 feet in height. It would have been 64 residential condominium units in 2 separate buildings. And If you go to the next slide, there's another example of this. This is similar to their product over at Tower Oaks. There was support from some of the planning staff at the time and some members of the community recognizing that given the metro station location of the property, that was a really good use for this many units. However, we also heard feedback from the then mayor and council and some members of the community that they just thought that the product was too much for the site. So Pulte went back to the drawing board and came back with the 2/2 product, which we'll show you in a moment, which really provides a good transition from the multifamily that's surrounded on two sides of the property, the townhomes on one side, and then we have the single family across the street. And I think one of the other important things about this product is it is an ownership product. And I know back from years ago that that's been very important to the city to try to get ownership units surrounding the metro station, not simply more and more rental units. So the comprehensive plan was adopted in August 2021, and it designated the property for residential flexible floating zone, and it recommended either development with the MXNC zone or the RMD 15 zone with a maximum height of 50 feet. After the comp plan was adopted, as you know, the city decided we're going to put a hold on things because we want to adopt a new zoning ordinance, but recognizing that that was going to take time, they adopted the zoning text amendment that allows for this flexible zoning. And so that's what brings us to you this evening, the first step in that process, which is this briefing. So if you can go to the next slide, and I'll get into the project itself. So the project, as staff indicated, is 2 rows of 2/2 units. Each unit has 2 parking spaces as required by the code. It is center loaded, well, the alley accommodates the rear loaded with the product on the top of the screen facing Ardennes Avenue and the product on the bottom of the screen facing the townhomes. The bottom units are the first and second floor, and they're smaller units. They're about 1,500 square feet. And then the third and fourth floors of each unit are the larger units, which are approximately 2,500 square feet. The height is 50 feet, and depending on where the finished grade ends up, we will be proposing either a gable roof, which staff has indicated that they like that style better given the surrounding community, or a flat roof. And as I said before, the comprehensive plan recommended the 50 feet height limit. The zone actually allows more than that. So if there's a little bit of flexibility in there, we think we can get that gable roof product to work. But we need to get finer into our engineering and see where we end up with that. The side yard setback from the property line to the bottom of the screen is it ranges from 39 feet in the right-hand corner to more than 50 feet on the left-hand corner. And there's public use space provided along Ardennes Avenue, and the bottom of the site, we're actually more than 2 times the required amount of open space for the project. So if you can go to the next 2 slides, I'll show you very quickly the elevations. This is the flat roof elevation, and then the next slide is the gable. We are requesting 2 waivers. One is to foster the development that we're proposing. One has to do with the setback requirement. So the zone says that there's a 25-foot minimum setback requirement unless, or the height of the building. And in this case, the building's 50 feet. But as I said, we range from 39 feet to over 50 feet for that setback. And then the layback slope, which is a little bit of a complicated development standard, but it says you need a 30-degree angle from the property line, which in this case would result in an 86-foot setback. So if you think about the product that we're proposing, the product that surrounds us, that's an extremely large setback for this type of development at a metro station location. I would also note that the distance between our building and the Cambridge Walk building is that townhouse is actually 65 feet. The other zone that was recommended by the comp plan would have allowed for a maximum height of 40 feet and a setback of only 8 feet. So again, our setback is a minimum of 39 feet. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is a section that just gives you a sense of this. So the Cambridge Walk townhouses are on the left, and then the dotted dotted line is the property line, and then our product is on the right. You can see the generous setback that is being proposed. This isn't a situation where we're squeezing a lot of urban development and changing the character of the neighborhood. And in fact, I think that some planners would say that the 39 feet that we're proposing is more generous than what is necessary. But that came about because after meeting with the adjacent community, we were originally providing a 30-foot setback, and we heard loud and clear from them that they wanted a little bit more room, so we did what we could and could pull the building back an additional 9 feet. Other changes that we made in response to our outreach to the community, as I said, we increased our total open space. We also, and if you can go to the next slide, please. Along the shared property line, the Cambridge Walk folks have a forest conservation easement. Under today's forest conservation easement rules, that wouldn't qualify because it's too narrow of a space, but back when they were developed, it did. And they really cherish that strip of landscaping, so we said, well, let us do what we can do for you. We pulled the paving back, and if you go to the next slide, this is apparent. So the top, you can see where the property line is in relation to the existing paving, and what we've done is pulled the development back further and provided impervious landscaping and grass area to try to and added more landscaping there to supplement the trees that they have. So we think it's definitely a better situation than what exists today, and yet at the same time we're bringing needed housing to a metro station location, which we think is important. Finally, I wanted to touch on just two aspects of the project that are really important to us. And staff, if you could go back to slide 7 for just one moment. So currently, we are providing, as you can see, entrance to the property along Halpine with what's called a hammerhead at the end of the property to accommodate fire access. And we made that change based on input from staff, especially the fire safety folks. Since that time, staff has indicated their desire for a second entrance along Ardennes Avenue so that the access alley would loop around onto Ardennes. We're strongly opposed to that idea for lots of reasons, and I'm going to start with really the most important one, which is Vision Zero. There's a pedestrian path along Ardennes, there's a bike path along Ardennes, and this community is perfectly, can function perfectly well with one access. It is only 36 units. There's no reason for a second means of egress there. It interrupts the streetscape and just causes an unnecessary conflict point. We also have one of our public use spaces up there, and what we were trying to do is capitalize on the existing public use space that already exists at the corner of Higgins and Ardennes. And so if we have to punch through that road, then we've just diminished that public use space, whereas currently we're proposing to approximately double what's there. So that was very important to us as well. And I would note that the church, currently there is a driveway there for the church, and they experience people cutting through their property at higher speeds unnecessarily. So it seems like a request that doesn't really serve a purpose and isn't necessary. So that's a very important issue to us. And then the second one is that, as you can see from the plan as it currently exists, and I indicated we did shift everything 9 feet to the top of the page to provide a little bit more setback. We're at the point, though, now that there's no further give in that area to be gotten, if you will, because of the needed alleyway and the public use space in the front and the sidewalks and utilities and such. So we're hoping that, working with staff, that we can come to agreement that the plan, essentially what you see in front of you, is what it will be workable. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And as I said, our team is here as well, so they're available for questions as well.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
And thank you for being timely. Councilmember Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have several questions. Some of them, well, many of them, I had 7 questions, but staff answered a number, so I'll just keep it brief. With the hammerhead thing that you have posted up there, so that would end in 2 dead ends, essentially?
Correct.
At the end. Okay, it's currently proposed. Got it. And this is not a fair question to you. It just occurred to me, though. Do we know the height of the townhomes nearby Cambridge Walk?
We think they are 35 feet.
Yes, ma'am.
But we don't know that for sure. In fact, that was on
I
our
think it's probably a
to-do
reasonable
list.
estimate.
Uh-huh.
The reason I ask, and again, I'm not holding you to this, I think it's a fair estimate, is I know across on the north side are single-family townhomes, right, on Alpine. And the biggest concern I have is just height, change in height. I think that in isolation, I think it's a great idea to develop a property that's close to Metro to have as dense as make it as dense as possible while being mindful of its impact on schools, roads, water, so on and so forth. My concern is, what folks are looking at across the street. How would you all, and I do know further south, further south is the Canzo and all those others that are even taller, I think. But what would you say to a resident who lives in a single family on Halpine currently in terms of what to expect, what they're going to be looking at?
I'd say a couple things. First of all, as I said, we are somewhat of a transition site, and as you pointed out, both the Canso and then on the right-hand side of the screen, this property's sort of funny because it's the due north is actually it's hard to decide what qualifies as north versus east and west and south. But anyway, on the right-hand side of the screen is the another multifamily project, which is probably 60 feet. We weren't able to ascertain the height of that, but the one across Ardennes, as you noted, is 55 feet in height. So we are stepping down. And I would also say that the distance between the single family and our community is at least 80 feet between, so that's a generous setback as well, or generous distance. The issue of the appropriate height was considered during the comp plan recommendation, and the MXNC zone actually allows for a height of either 60 or 65 feet. And at that time, the mayor and council thought, well, 60 or 65 is too much to the concerns that you just raised, but that 50 is in fact an appropriate height. And I would say, not in Rockville, but in Montgomery County, some single-family homes are 50 feet in height. I mean, allowed to be 50 feet or height.
Sure. And a quick follow-up question, if I may. The same question to the Cambridge Walk folks. So they've been looking out their windows and seeing trees. Now they're going to see, I grant that you're going to put a few more trees there and extend the green space, but it's where it used to be presumably some sort of clearing and maybe the steeple of a church, they're now going to see housing. What would you say to them?
Well, they're also seeing automobiles parked on a surface parking lot with little or no stormwater management and surface parking coming right up to their property, and we're extending that. So I actually think that, that the slide, I think it was slide 7, but I'm not sure. No, it was after that. The slide that shows the comparison, keep one more, I think. One more, please. No, one more again. The next one more, that one. I think just going back to that gives you a sense of, yes, they will likely see some structure through the trees, but they're also going to see more landscaping, and there's nothing wrong when you're living in an urbanized area to see other homes and new quality homes.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. Is that your last question? Thank you for your time. Councilmember Valeri?
Yes, hello, good evening. I know this area well. I don't know if you know this about me, but I live in Twinbrook. I live on this side of Twinbrook, so just a heads up, I'm going to throw a lot of things that I know this area very well. I know Ardennes Avenue. It's part of our structure of World War II related names. This is named after the Ardennes Forest. And that is why it's great. I don't know what Halpine comes from, but I know that Ardennes comes from that. I have a lot of questions, and I'll try to push them together. I'll probably start with on blush my reactions to this version of the proposed site plan, and then transition into questions. Whatever was put forward to the previous mayor and council, and the reaction that you got is the reaction of that mayor and council. I can tell you, for me, I don't agree with their conclusions. I don't agree with the lessening the density in that space, because then we lose the opportunity to have MPDU units. And frankly, having a space this close to a metro and not trying to maximize that space, to me, feels like a dereliction of duty, at least to me. There are surrounded on all sides, and if you go back to the site plan slide, please. I have it in front of me. This is exactly how nerdy I am. I am looking at the actual site plan while we're talking. So this is actually, the side on the left is north, and the other side is south. So in the future, I'm looking at Jim Wasilek. We need a compass rose on some of these site plans, because I was like, which way is north? And I know this area. So I appreciate what you said about Vision Zero. Completely. And as a co-founder of the Rockville Pedestrian Advocacy Committee, I also know how much of a struggle it's been for us to improve the Twinbrook neighborhood, to make it more in line with our Vision Zero goals. Having said that, I think ultimately a Vision Zero goal is to encourage living closer to mass transit and allowing more people to live closer to mass transit. So I think that the two can coexist. I think it is an overly generous setback, frankly. I think that I'm sure that it was in response to the feedback. But if you look at the setback of the surrounding single-family homes, we're not looking at such expansive setbacks. And there's a variety, too, and with height as well, right? We look at a variety of different spaces. It's a very welcome and opening community, and we'd like to be able to welcome more neighbors. So I just want to put a plug in that I would love to see greater density. To go back to now to transition to a question before I do that. I love the fact that we're getting rid of a surface parking lot, because we have a flooding issue in Twinbrook. We have a stormwater management issue. We are, as my colleagues have joked with me, I live in the sump. I live on Midway Avenue. And so we know what occurs in Twinbrook, because we are at almost the lowest point of the city of Rockville. So getting rid of that surface lot, and frankly as much of a surface parking, I think is ultimately better environmentally as well, when you're looking at what climate change is doing to all of our neighborhoods. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about how there is going to be a certain level of tree preservation in a way that I don't know that we would see, in addition to new plantings. And so I'm a big fan of those two things. In general, I heard what you said about the feasibility of the entrance on Ardennes. But looking at the site plan as it is right now, it does not look like off of Halpine, you're not seeing perhaps the best, most inviting side of the development. What you're seeing is the entrance to the private alleyway. And I see that there's landscaping there as well. But you're not seeing the front of your neighbor's unit, so to speak. And it's very similar to what Cambridge Walk's setup is as well. So I personally, Ardennes is, I forgot what the term is. It's not an arterial. I think it's a feeder road. Traffic can be handled more easily by Ardennes than Halpine, frankly. And I used to walk this all the time. That intersection can handle adjustments more easily than coming off of Halpine. And so to my understanding and from my experiences, having walked and driven through and bicycled through this area, the entrance coming off of Ardennes, similar to the entrance to the Canso, makes more sense. And it seems to be, it would have less of an impact than having the entrance on Halpine Road if you're looking at the effect of this particular, your development, your project on the surrounding area, and any sort of concerns about traffic. Then I would also say that looking again at the feasibility of the entrance coming off of Ardennes, I think would be a worthwhile endeavor. But again, I understand where you're coming from. I just want to say also as a point of Vision Zero, I think that that's important. I also appreciate what people said about green space and pocket parks and all that wonderful stuff. We have quite a few and some beautiful parks in Twin Brook. And so instead of looking at, a way of utilizing a space as a shared space, I would almost rather see other sort of community goods, such as if that isn't a pocket park in the upper right corner, providing a space for a neighborhood sign. We currently do not have any signage on that part coming in from Twin Brook Parkway into Ardennes to even know that you're entering Twin Brook. So that would be, I think, a terrific use of the space as well. I'm going to stop blathering on, but that's kind of my thoughts, and I would love to hear your reaction to anything that I said, but if I can clarify anything that I said as well.
In terms of the public use space, one comment that we received from staff at DRC was that they want us to take another look at it and think of other things that we can do, and so your comment is in line with that. And I failed to mention that we anticipate some type of public art here as well, and so we'll be playing around with where we think that where the most appropriate location for that would be.
That would also be great as well. We don't have as much public art as well, but I know that what I just said about the spaces too, if you do look at making any adjustments to the proposed site plan, increasing density or anything else, everything what I just said would probably not be relevant, but just wanted to flag those kind of things for your consideration.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Two questions. One, staff, if you could just get back to us as we go through questions. When was this presented to the last mayor and council? I was trying to find the date and I couldn't find it. If you could just flag that for us.
So just for clarification, you're looking for when this project was presented
Yeah,
to
there
the
was
last...
comments about mayor and council gave feedback on this project. So I'm asking you, when did this come before mayor and council?
Okay.
Thank you.
And I could probably give you a ballpark. It was prior to August 2021 when the comp plan
During
was
the comp
adopted.
planning process?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, but not specifically presenting this project or discussing the density or specifics of this project?
I need to go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
I don't recall that.
I don't recall that there was a specific presentation on this project to the previous mayor and council with a focused commentary. So I just wanted to clarify. I do know that there was a comp planning process, but and I also just wanted to note that this is a good example of using our floating zone process because we are rewriting the whole code, and instead of having projects wait 2 years, we found a way to move things forward. So I just wanted to thank staff for introducing the floating zone so that we can have things go forward. And I know my colleague has a question, so I'll move to him. Councilman Van Graaf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I just want to echo what the mayor said. Thank you guys for utilizing the floating zone map amendment. That's what it's here for, and just as Councilmember Valera said, utilizing it close to the metro. That's exactly one of the uses and what we want to see with development, so I appreciate that. I want to talk globally about something that my colleague said, something that you said in the presentation. We've gotten some comments from the community with regard to green space issues, because I know that the existing church had some green spaces. You've talked generally about some of the areas along the side. Can you talk generally about, because I know I've seen from pictures, you're proposing additional green spaces all around the areas and public use areas that might, and I could be wrong, might even be larger green spaces than what is there now kind of surrounding the church. Can you talk a little bit about what this project is aside from the parking spaces and the facilities and the green spaces and the tree areas that is being proposed globally on the whole project.
So the open space, our open space what we are providing in terms of the open space requirement is 2.3 times what the requirement is. There's also within that open space requirement a public use space requirement. And so we were focusing the public use spaces along our dens. However, the green area that you see at the bottom of the screen is certainly available. And originally we were going to provide a path all the way through, but that may not work because of limited space. But that's also available and open to the public as well. So I don't know that, I don't have the exact amount of green space that is currently on the church property. I mean, they have a little playground area and at the corner, and I think that's about it. We will get that number because I think that will be useful to compare the existing green space to what's being proposed. But I am fairly certain that this is much more generous than what exists now.
And as a follow-up, you're proposing specific planting trees and having significant tree cover as well.
Correct, yes. Yes, in fact, that was another thing that we did after talking to the community. We originally were thinking that we would satisfy our forest conservation with a fee in lieu, and we took another look at that and were able to provide and satisfy all of our requirements on site. So you can see that from the image, how much planting we will be doing.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, unless anyone. Okay. On our dens, just to clarify, that pathway, that's the front of the homes, or is that the back? I thought it was.
No, that's the front.
That's the front, right. That's what I interpreted. Okay. I just wanted to clarify so the listening public is aware. That will be the front. You also showed us on slide 12 the change in the tree space, and I know you made some adjustments there. It looks like there's space to have some of those trees stay. Are you proposing to, because it looks like there's just some flat green space. I don't know the width of those trees, but is it not possible to keep some of the trees?
I think all the trees along that southern, no, I forgot what side that was, western or southern property line will be retained. And in fact, the other thing we did is we moved our limits of disturbance up to make sure that we would not interfere with those existing trees.
Okay, so they'll still have the tree coverage.
Yes, it
between the
will be
properties.
supplemented with trees on our property that we're going to add.
So pretty much what they see now will be improved by better than looking at a surface parking lot, and there will be trees to provide
That's
a
correct.
barrier. Okay, not a barrier, but a landscape to look at.
Yes.
Okay, and then my question about public safety on the way you have the hammer, if we can go to that screen. How would fire safety ambulances be able to, because those are bigger, and even delivery trucks, be able to navigate the property where it's not, they'd have to like do some kind of U-turn out of there, or how do you propose that would happen with not having the entrance on our dens?
So the most important thing is, for an emergency situation, is getting into the property, and they obviously can do that very easily from Halpine. And then the design of the hammerhead and the turning and the radiuses at the corner were specifically designed to accommodate the fire apparatus, the fire truck. And so they would, if they were parked in the long stretch of the alley, and then when they were done, they would turn like up toward the top of the screen, back down, and then go back out the alley face forward. So working with the engineers working with the fire safety people came up with the design to make sure that that would work. And if it works for a fire truck, it's going to work for any other truck on the site.
And so would they have to kind of do a broken U-turn to get back out, or?
They do a three-point turn? Three-point turn.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I could see to the comments of my colleague, like why it probably would be easier to allow a pathway to our dens, and just everyone's getting delivery trucks, whether it's groceries or, everyday packages. I just want to make sure that that is not a point of contention in the future.
No, and I would say the fact that that design can accommodate a fire truck if you think about the majority of the delivery trucks on the site, which are your groceries, your Amazons, those are just step trucks that would have no problem at all making the turn and coming back out.
Okay, and these will be there's two car park opportunities. Are they tandem or?
Tandem.
Tandem.
Yes.
Okay. I only raise it because there's a couple other properties where that's becoming an issue. So
yes, so each unit will have a garage, and then behind the garage in the driveway, each unit will also have a second space there.
Okay. And one of the comments that we read through the community feedback was, well, how are you contemplating handling visitor parking?
So, and we have our traffic consultant, Katie Wagner, and I'm going to let her field that question.
So Katie Wagner from Grove Slade. So we are very confident in this location that we're going to not have a significant need for visitor parking given the proximity to Metro. There are 2 bus stops along our dens right next to the site, but there is a significant amount of street parking in the area on our dens. There are metered parking spaces, and so we believe there's enough on-street parking available for those visitors. And again, that is part of the reason why we are also trying to limit access off of our dens, is that when you do introduce a curb cut, then you need to have clearance on each side. And so we really understand that that is a community concern, and so trying to keep as much on-street parking to accommodate everyone in the area.
Okay, I mention it because we do have 2 other properties that we hear from that there's, newer townhome development and people fight over parking. So just want to make sure that we're addressing that concern. How far are you from the Twin Brook Metro parking lot?
About a quarter mile. So again, that's another place where there is parking available for visitors.
Sorry, can staff mute the person who is having a party at home? Thank you.
And then we understand that is a concern. There was another study done in the area for a nearby project that was taking a look at on-street parking occupancy. And so not only is there that on-street metered parking, there is also other places for people to park outside of the workday. And the occupancy study that we reviewed from a nearby project showed that there is very limited use of the on-street parking, that the on-street parking is used about 30% of the time, or 30% occupied.
Okay, thank you. My next question, well, it's more of a comment. I am lamenting that there's no affordable in this. The Council of Governments has spoken highly of the need for more housing, but they said most of it needs to be thinking about affordability concerns. So I appreciate what you've done, but I just wanted to note that that is something that is on this council's mind. And so maybe that, with some of the waivers, you might consider how you might, adjust some pricing to be within line. I don't know what the pricing is going to be, and I know that's probably too premature, but it's something that we take very, very seriously, and I wanted to call it out. The other thing we take very seriously when this comes back to us is sustainability and green features. So I'll just put that bug in now to say that's something that we'll likely be asking heavily about. And then the other comment is, I believe this is about a 10 or 15-minute walk from Twin Brook Rec Center. Is that about right?
About 15 minutes.
Yeah. So I just, I know you have some pocket parks, but I don't know if there's an opportunity to just make it so that some kids can play, versus the scattered, pocket parks. That's another thing we hear in communities, in new design communities, that kids need space to play. And I wanted to make sure that if there's any possibility to consider that.
That question has come up before. Pulte's experience with this product in particular is it's not very heavy on the children. The units, like I said, the lower units are smaller units, 1,500, and then there are the 3rd and 4th floor units are larger, but their experience is that that there's just not that many young children in this product type that they provide. But I hear your comment, and we can give that some thought.
I was a child who grew up in an apartment, in a small space. So people need to live and grow and stretch.
Yes.
So I just
Mhm.
wanted to say that's on my mind
Okay.
in particular. I think I will just say I know this area needs stormwater management, so appreciate whatever can be done there.
Mhm.
And I look forward to when this comes back to us.
Great, thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Do you have one more comment, Council? Oh, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you so much for your presentation. One of the comments from the community members was a concern around increased traffic. Could you speak to that and any of your findings?
Yes, so we did a comparison of what is on the site today, and so it is a church as well as a daycare use, and so we compared the trips generated by that daycare use, which is pretty significant in the fact that you have parents coming in the morning and leaving in the morning, and similarly in the afternoon that they're coming in and leaving. And so we compared the daycare use to these to the townhomes trip generation, and so we saw that the townhomes would generate significantly fewer trips than the daycare that is approved for the site.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions? Okay, Dr. Miles.
Thanks so much. And ma'am, from traffic, you're proposing that the on-street parking will be just on Ardennes, or what were we all envisioning?
No, so the on-street parking already exists today, that there's metered spaces out there today, and so we're just proposing that while there is no visitor parking on site, we anticipate most of the visitors coming to the site will take advantage of transit, but there is available on-street parking or the metro parking lot very nearby to the site, so we don't anticipate visitor parking being an issue.
Got it. So those are both paid. And I guess anecdotally, the one on Alpine is not? No. Or is it just it's street parking, but you have to have a permit though.
During certain time periods, yeah.
Got it.
So on the weekends, you don't have to, like during
when
the
I've gone out,
workday.
it's been thick. I would say, I mean, I could find a spot, but it was at baseline, it's a little tricky. I mean, I defer to my colleague who lives there. I can't speak to Ardennes, but Alpine. So I guess what I'm saying is that I do want to make sure that there is enough in terms of visitor parking, just given my, several times of going out there. And I wouldn't say having trouble finding a spot, but I think it's at baseline, it's already somewhat congested. That's all.
When this comes back to us, will we get an idea on what the current usage of those spaces are and if there is lots of availability for on-street parking?
Staff can definitely look into that and provide an update. And I also wanted to clarify for the issue of the tandem spaces. The applicant is proposing the composition of what the applicant is proposing is a little bit different than the other projects that we've seen in the city, particularly with the tandem spaces. Some other projects have had 2 parking spaces within a garage. So the garage actually is the entire length of the building. That's not what is being proposed here. They're only going to have 1 garage space towards the rear of the building, and then their second space is going to be outside the building in their driveway. So I just wanted to clarify that. And staff is reviewing to make sure that those spaces are adequately provided for.
So will you have to move one car to pull the other one out or not?
Yes, it'll still be a stack situation, but
Right,
they both won't be within the building. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilmember O'Leary.
To the point of the on-street parking and to Councilmember Miles' point, I totally hear what you're saying about paid versus unpaid spots and how they're being utilized. The metered parking on Ardennes is not metered after a certain point in the evening and all weekend. They're just free and open spots that I can tell you. With regards to utilization, it's, I think, underutilized as opposed to the metered parking on Lewis and getting closer to Metro, and the Metro surface lots are barely utilized. This is an area with an overabundance of parking options around. To that point, though, and I'm wondering, if there are residents, and I'm figuring this would probably only be first level residents who may have disabilities, would there be the possibility of having reserved handicap parking to be designated either on Ardennes, I think probably on Ardennes at some point along that way, or along Halpine, just to make that space, because often, especially for people with mobility issues who may or may not use mobility devices, you do need a little extra space, and you don't want necessarily to have somebody not have that space to be able to, unfurl a ramp, as I've done many times in my life. So that would just be the only other consideration. I know that the Canso has a parking garage behind it, but that's also a different situation. I did have one other thought popped in my head. When you were originally talking about the feasibility of the second entrance from Ardennes, I know you were talking about the sight lines. If the setback was adjusted where it was not overly generous, would it make that more feasible, or does that really have no impact on the feasibility of an entrance off of Ardennes?
You're saying if we could decrease the setback, would that change the? I don't think that changes what we think are the most important things about why we would like to avoid that second driveway, and that being the disruption in the streetscape, the conflict with the pedestrian and bikes, and then the fact that it minimizes the. We were trying to capitalize on the existing public use space and increase it, and if we put that driveway in there, that we can't do that at all.
And I can appreciate that, and I appreciate, everyone likes a nice streetscape. Sadly, I really wish that anything could have been mixed use around here, because there's really nothing to walk to as of yet. So this is lovely place to walk back and forth, right? But walking to, we don't have like little coffee shops. We don't have barely have a drugstore around here, and it does take. You would have to go right back around toward the metro to get to any other like amenities. Mm-hmm. So just things to consider. I don't know a lot of people that choose to walk from Halpine to Twinbrook Parkway as just that's the way that they get around to that part. So just considerations. Unfortunately, the retail amenities as of yet are not there. So just something to consider.
Ms. Harris, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and best of luck with the Planning Commission, and we look forward to this coming back to us as soon as possible.
Thank you, and we appreciate all your comments.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back to agenda item 12 to talk about 2024 legislation. Break. We're going to be moving on to agenda item 12, and we'll be discussing 2024 legislation, in particular 3 bills that relate to Governor Moore's housing bills and ways to expand access to housing. We'll hear from Linda Moran, who will present on the bills and shared some information. I also wanted to note for people who are listening, additional packet material was added today to share staff's analysis on the bills being introduced.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Tonight is the review of 2024 state legislation. Just to check, Madam Mayor, would you like to take each bill separately, give a quick overview, do questions, position, and then assign an elected to work with staff?
Yes, please. There's a lot in these.
Yes.
And there are some that we may say we're ready to testify on, and some that we want more information. So I've heard from some of my colleagues and hear comments up here that I think we'll maybe testify on one, we'll see, and then we'll want questions and answers on the other 2. And also, although there's a hearing on the 20th, I understand this is going to be not just the first time, so we have opportunities to share our feedback on others.
Absolutely. There's going to be ongoing discussion about these bills, I think, throughout the balance of the 2024 session. I would also like to add that Director Ricky Barker of Community Planning and Development Services is on the line, as well as Frederica Granger, Acting Housing and Community Services Director, Jane Rader, the Housing Program Manager, as well as Ms. Pam Casemeyer from our state lobbying team. So thank you. All right, so the first bill that we will discuss is SB 481 HB 693, and that's the Renters' Rights and Housing Stabilization Act of 2024. And some of the highlights of the bill are that this legislation would establish an Office of Tenants' Rights to serve as an advocate for renters, provides education on tenant rights under the law and how to execute them, provides referral to appropriate law enforcement for landlords that are out of compliance with local, state, and federal housing laws. The Office of Tenants' Rights would create a tenants' rights bill that would be provided to all tenants as part of their lease. It raises eviction filing fees to discourage unwarranted evictions and reduces the allowable security deposit in Maryland from 2 months to 1 month. So staff was recommending a position of support on this bill. And if there are any questions, please let us know.
Councilmember Shaw.
So, as a tenant, I strongly support this bill, and there's a few things I just wanted to raise. So currently, government information that needs to be shared with tenants typically goes through the landlord or the property manager. So this office would allow an opportunity for direct and timely information to tenants. And this could be very helpful to our city staff as well. I do like the right of first refusal. Oftentimes where I've seen that been successful is where there is a tenant association. We saw in the bill that there's only about a 20-day period after the offer for tenants to take advantage of the right of first refusal. And so one of the things that I would recommend in drafting the testimony is having the tenant's office be able to be a resource for tenants who are interested in organizing a tenant association. Oftentimes tenants who are well organized or in an association are better positioned to make a collective decision around a shared purchase for the property. I would also say the increase in the eviction fee, I have some concerns about that because oftentimes the eviction fee is already passed on to the tenant in some way. And so I know that this bill does prohibit a pass-through, but in jurisdictions like Rockville, where there are no restrictions on fees, this can be easily passed to tenants. And then also, the increase in the tenant fee will most likely hurt smaller landlords. Smaller landlords, as it says, the data provided within our briefing book, the smaller landlords are 2 to 3 times likely not to evict than their corporate landlords. And typically a lot of the increase in this eviction fee is really intended to address some of the bad actors. And for the most part, I think the corporate landlords are really the folks doing the bad acting. And so I am concerned that the increase in the eviction fee could have some unintended consequences. And then I wanted to just ask staff, and we don't need an answer now. I wanted to know how this bill would impact our local code for tenants' rights to organize, and that's in Section 18, as well as our data collection and the quarterly reports on rent increases, which is also Section 18.
Thank you. I forwarded those questions when I received them to Frederica Granger and Jane L. Rader. They're on the line. I'm not sure if they've had a chance to fully research it, but Rika and Jane, can you respond, please?
Yeah, I can respond.
So the first question was, will the code be affected by the, sorry, let me look at it again. Sorry. It doesn't, neither one of them is going to affect the code. The question about the tenant's right to organize wouldn't affect the code. And then the question about data collection on rent increases and things like that, that's really focused on the eviction trends. And so that's not going to be affected by the code's not going to be affected by that either. So.
Thank you, Rika.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Valeri.
I had a question, Ms. Moran. I'm still getting up to speed on exactly all the members of the General Assembly, but it appears that there are no Senate sponsors from Montgomery County. And my curiosity, I understand that this is, by request of the administration, but I find that interesting given the advocacy and support in the county for renters. So I would be curious to know, is it just a matter of this one, they missed this one? Is there a competing, perhaps more in line with the county law version of this? That's just the one thing that made my eyebrow go up, because Montgomery County is the largest delegation in Annapolis, so to not have one of our county legislators sponsoring this seemed very off to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Valeri. That is a good question. Ms. Pam Casemeyer is on the line, and I wanted to see if she had any thoughts to provide you on that question.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Co-sponsors in general don't often reflect a lot. Sometimes a bill will come out very shortly before it gets dropped. And so they see who they can get, but they usually don't spend, whether it's the administration or even legislators who are putting their own legislation in. It'll be who they can see or run into, but they don't hold it waiting to hear from people. I don't think the lack of Montgomery County legislators either means that they weren't supportive. I think it's probably more of a timing thing. The administration bills came out very shortly before they had to be submitted, and I would imagine there was a bit of a challenge. And sometimes, even if people are supportive, they don't necessarily sign on to everything. So I wouldn't look at those sponsors. It's really a governor's bill.
Thanks, Ms. Casemeyer. That makes sense. And then I also just switched over to the House sponsors, and I see that Delegate Palakovich-Carr is sponsoring it. So that's, and I understand your larger point. That was just something that I saw and flagged in my brain. So thank you for that, though.
Councilmember Shaw.
Yeah, I just, Councilmember Valeri had a very good question. I just wanted to share how helping to draft the rent stabilization bill of the county, that these are two starkly different bills, in that the rent stabilization bill in the county actually has like a rent cap and actually directly deals with the cost of rent and stabilizing it. And this bill more so provides a framework in which tenants can be organized and informed, and to kind of help on the edges in terms of fees.
Any other questions? I have a few. Okay, thank you. So I know this came very quickly, and there may be additional questions that we may have after this meeting. I'll just share a few. I was concerned about the way the right of first refusal is listed. I do like the idea for tenants to be able to purchase their homes. I think that is great. I don't know why they have to wait. I mean, couldn't there be a notification if someone is going to put for sale versus having someone go to get a contract and then that contracting process be disrupted? I mean, I'm looking at more of the small landlords. I know we have a great ROFR program for larger properties. I'm just kind of thinking about it for someone who has their own single-family home, may have one property. That's the one I'm concerned about. I do support the ROFR for large multifamily. It's just I'm wondering on the smaller landlords where someone may just be renting a single townhome or a single family or townhome, that so we're putting a corporate process onto potentially an individual. And perhaps there could be a way to notify intent to sale before you actually go to the whole sales process. So that's my comment, to see if that could be better done for the smaller landlords. The other aspect is if someone is, again, I'm speaking to like someone who's just trying to sell their single family or townhome, sometimes that is sold to a family member for a lower price. And so I think that we should acknowledge that happens and allow someone to sell to a family member. I know that passing down of generational wealth is an issue. I also know that sometimes people need to release their assets if they're going into senior living facilities and, have to, I wonder how that would work if someone is having to sell to be able to go into a senior living facility. So those are some of the questions and issues that I thought could come up for the smaller scale. But I do support finding a way, if someone is living in the home, let the tenant try and buy it. I just wanted to say that there's some nuances to consider. The eviction fee, I too shared Councilmember Shaw's concerns about that it will be passed on. I certainly think $8 is low, but going from 8 to 90, 90 plus is a big jump. I also, in general, don't think we deal with the whole issue of the way renters get help when they're falling behind on rent. I think is onerous on both the landlord and the renter. At least in the city of Rockville, Montgomery County, you have to get evicted of an eviction notice before you can even get help. That is, to me, stressful for the individual, for the landlord, and I hope that that's something that we can even address in the city or in the county. I don't know if that is something that applies to state level in terms of the way REAP is organized, but that's a question I had, because I've spoken to some people, and I actually got an email last week Friday from someone who was at risk for eviction, and they had to wait to get eviction filed and a court date to even get any assistance. And I just think that is not a good thing for those families or the landlords. In terms of things I really liked about the bill, I do appreciate the ability for people to get support and more of a counseling service. They also had something on credit counseling being added here. So I in general support that. One thing I would have added is just how can renters get more transparency on the fees and rent increases so they can make more informed choices about where they're moving into. I didn't see it deal with that, but that's something I wanted to raise proactively. People move into a place where they have no idea what the history is on that. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? Councilmember Van Grack.
I would just note, was there any, I know there's the other similar renters' rights bill from Delegate Wilkins, that I think it's a HB 477. I didn't know if there was any interplay done with regard to that in this bill. I know that's a more narrowly focused bill with regard to some renters' rights. I just didn't know if that was something the city was looking at or evaluating along with what Governor Moore has proposed.
We could look at it. We have not looked at that yet, but we
Okay.
certainly could look at it and see if there's any interplay. And I would ask Pam, has she heard anything about Ms. Wilkins' bills that interplays or is relevant?
No, I haven't heard about any interplay, but I can go back and review that legislation as well.
Okay.
Thank you. And there's a note in our staff report that says that since July 2023, staff have received 441 inquiries, and we have one person who is handling all those inquiries. do we anticipate that the ability to create this kind of office will help to reduce the inquiries because they'll be able to get support from the state?
Yes. I've talked with Ms. Rader and Ms. Granger from Housing and Community Development, and they think that this bill certainly would be helpful because that is a heavy workload, and it would be very helpful to have a whole other state resource that residents can go to for counseling, how to execute their rights, other support services. So that seems to be a very good provision in this bill.
Thank you. Can staff get back to us on the question of REAP and whether there's any flexibility, at least within our own jurisdiction, to be more humane in terms of how assistance is offered?
Yes, we can. We'll look into that.
Thank you. I thought I saw some more hands. Councilmember Shaw.
Madam Mayor, I was just going to add to your really good comment about the number of inquiries. Considering that renters have steadily increased in almost half of the population in Rockville, I'm sure that that number actually doesn't truly reflect how many folks actually have questions about their situation. And I can imagine, since this number of renters has been steadily increasing, we will get more questions in the future. So I think this is another really great benefit for the city of Rockville for this bill.
Thank you. Is just a straw poll, is everyone in a good position to agree that we should testify on this? I'm seeing thumbs up. Okay. So I will entertain a motion that we testify on this bill and that we appoint a council member to help work on this. I can't, you can make it. Okay, so do you want to, I know that Councilmember Shaw has offered to help write the letter, and that we would all have an opportunity to review it to make sure we're in agreement. Is that part of your motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I will entertain a second of that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. We're ready for the next one.
Great, thank you. The next bill is the Housing and Community Development Financing Act of 2024. And some quick highlights from this bill is that this bill would establish the Maryland Community Investment Corporation, which is a community development entity that would be certified by the United States Treasury to channel federal investment into low-income communities in Maryland. This is done by the New Market Tax Credit used to fund commercial, community facility, and mixed-use real estate projects, as well as operating businesses in qualifying low-income communities. Community development, or CDEs, sell tax credits to investors with federal income tax liabilities and use the funds raised by the sale to make investments in entities located in low-income communities. The bill also expands the eligible costs for which a grant or loan can be issued to a local government or community development organization under the Strategic Demolition and Smart Growth Impact Fund to include debt payment and credit enhancements. Current law authorizes pre-development activities such as demolition, land assembly, architectural design, and engineering. FY24 funding is stated in current law. It's in statute at $20 million for a project called Project Core in Baltimore City and $5 million statewide. FY25 funding levels are not known. This bill aligns with the Mayor and Council's affordable housing priority, and so staff was recommending that the Mayor and Council might like to support this bill. The House hearing is on the 20th. The Senate hearing is on the 22nd.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to note that I know Councilmember Shaw is willing to testify on the previous bill. If there's an opportunity, if people want to jump in to split House versus Senate. So I just wanted to flag that, and once we get the letter and we look at schedules, we'll be able to talk that through. Any comments on HB 599, SB 483? Councilmember Shaw.
I strongly support this bill because I think it would strengthen Rockville Housing Enterprise. I did have a question. On section 10-115 on the bill, section D, it talks about diversity on the board. This bill does detail the composition of the board, and I was just questioning what does diversity mean? On state boards, are there measures that define what diversity means?
I don't know if you have any
Just-
gut sense one way or the other. I mean, we could just check the box, not actually testify. I mean, register support,
I think
but
someone is
not
off mute.
testify. I mean, I hate to
Can
undermine
you
your
please
reimbursement, but
mute her, because I don't think she wants us to hear this conversation. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
So we are going to have our state lobbying team look into that question for you to see if there's something in state code that defines that term, and we'll get
Okay.
back to you.
And also if there's a so the bill also mentions an advisory committee, and if there is a possibility to have somebody from the community with the project that, you know, is directly impacted, either a tenant or a homeowner, is there a possibility to have someone who is most impacted on the advisory committee? Thank you.
Thank you. I thought on page, well, I did read the full bill, but I think there says one representative of low-income communities. It doesn't specify what kind of representative, but I would imagine that it could be a nonprofit or a resident or something. But I appreciate they at least tried to name
They did.
someone of the community, but I agree. It would be nice to get more understanding.
We could make that sort of a statement in the testimony, making that recommendation.
I'm not seeing other hands, but I'll just say I do support this one. I do think I like that it talks about diverse and inclusive entrepreneurship. It looks for ways to leverage new financing tools to support affordable housing. During the comprehensive planning process, I was supportive of even like trying to find ways to work with CDFIs to bring more of that funding to Maryland. I think this would help, and then for RHE would give them some access to look at credits to be able to make improvements so that we not only have the quantity of housing, but we can also look at the quality of it. It allows them to help support renovations that are needed to make sure that housing is up to code.
That's a really good point, and just want to let you know that Housing and Community Development did flag the legislation for RHE, and they indicated that, you know, overall they really support what this bill is trying to do, and they're in the middle of doing some additional research just to make sure that they would qualify as a community development entity and meet some of the other specifications in the bill to take advantage of it. So that's where, and they were, you know, as you were saying, so they could use the funds. I mean, something like a Scarborough Square is going to need lots of funding for renovations, so it would be terrific if they could use this tool to do that.
Yeah, and also, I should say the acronym, Community Development Financial Institutions often work better in states and areas where they have some level of funding, and then they will go out and raise and bring more funding in. So it'll give us more leveraging ability to look for other partners who are focused on affordable housing. Councilmember Van Grack.
I would just like to echo what my colleagues have said. This is, I think, a very beneficial bill. And I think it's important to note, similar to what we were talking about with the last bill, there's a number of Montgomery County sponsors, including two sponsors from District 17, Delegate Spiegel and Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you. So I will entertain, does anyone have any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands. I will entertain a motion. And does anyone, actually, let me ask the question first before we put people on the spot. Anyone willing to help? I mean, I'm willing to help work on the letter. I don't know if you, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we, the three of us, will look at working on the letter and the testimony for this. Was anyone willing to make a motion to that effect? Councilmember Shaw.
So I move that Mayor Ashton, myself, and Councilmember Van Grack draft the letter in support of SB 483, HB 599. Oh, and that we support the bill. Thank you.
And I heard it seconded by Councilmember Jackson. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. We're ready for the next one. We're going right through.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, the next bill is SB 484, HB 538. the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act of 2024. This legislation seeks to incentivize development in the state in desirable areas. So we'll go over just some quick highlights, and again, we have Planning Director Barker in case any technical questions come up. He's on the line. This legislation provides density bonuses to encourage new construction of affordable housing units in targeted areas, including former state-owned complexes, none of which are in the city, so that works. Rail transit areas within a mile of a station, and that does include Metro Rail and rail stations, and also land owned by nonprofits. And so 2 of the 3 scenarios that the governor is proposing would apply in the city of Rockville, and that's properties within 1 mile of the metro station, and they must have at least 25% affordable housing. And if they meet that criteria, they would get the affordable housing. And the other scenario is a 501c3 that owns land that would be building a project that would contain at least 50% affordable housing units. So if you meet that criteria, you would allow higher density in the following areas. It would allow middle housing zone for single family. It allows mixed use and 30% greater density in areas zoned for multifamily. It allows 30% greater density in areas zoned for mixed use, and it allows mixed use housing in line with the highest density area of the jurisdiction for areas zoned as non-residential. It expands single-family residential zones to include manufactured homes if they will be attached to a foundation. The Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance cannot be used to deny a permit for affordable housing projects financed by low-income housing tax credits or other affordable housing financing programs managed by the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. This provision would sunset in 15 years. The bill also limits public engagement in the development process by limiting public hearings to 1 each before the local governing body, the Planning Commission, a Historic District Commission, and the Board of Appeals. So staff also provided comments from the Planning Department and Housing and Community Development. As you can see, this bill has a more impact on Rockville, and it has affordable housing as its goal, which is a priority of the mayor and council, and it also has some considerations as far as impact. And those were noted in detail in the staff report. And so I will turn it over to the mayor and council with any questions. Oh, and staff was recommending, a position of support with amendments. I'm understanding that MML will also be taking a support with amendments position on the bill. They're still working through those. They haven't fine-tuned or developed them yet, but we're staying in touch with them. And if the mayor and council would like, we can coordinate our efforts with them to get maximum advocacy benefits.
Thank you. Can I ask,
Yes.
I know that at the time of getting our notes that it noted a hearing on 220 for the House hearing. Do we know when the Senate will be hearing this?
The Senate hearing is on 222. That's a couple days later. And I just want to add that at any time, the mayor and council can send comments to the General Assembly, to any of the committees. They could just be sent directly via email. While it may not be part of the record for the public hearing, the legislators would still get the testimony or the letter. And we have done that in the past. So if some time is needed, those are certainly some options that we can consider.
I appreciate that. I did hear from some of my colleagues that there are more questions that we might want to dig into. So we would have the opportunity to get responses hopefully by 226 so we can draft a letter.
Yes.
Okay. All right. This one has a lot of goodies in it, a lot to dissect. So let's just see where comments land, and we may have to circle in on areas of agreement or not. Councilmember Fulton.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions on this one, which are very well reflected in the comments that in the staff recommendation. They're mostly there. I really get excited about what this bill is trying to do, but there are some things that I would really want to just understand a lot better. Primarily, the preemption question. If I read it correctly, that it's under certain circumstances preempting our APFO, the application of our APFO. I would really want to know more about what that means in practice and how we would mitigate and how we would otherwise address people's concerns about adequate public facilities. The other question here is, what is an unreasonable limitation? Like, is that in the bill and I just didn't dink through far enough? It says it's removing unreasonable limitations on various things, and
There is some, I'm sorry,
Go
there
ahead.
is some language in there. Let me see if I can find it for you. I saw it earlier this evening.
The last thing I'll say, just while you're looking, because I don't want to take up too much time, is I appreciated the recommendation. I am in favor of streamlining processes. I am not in favor of limiting opportunity for to collect input. And I really liked the recommendation in here that rather than maybe it achieves the same goal to just compress a timeline for hearings to make sure they all get done in a timely manner rather than be strict on the exact number, because preserving flexibility there might be useful in certain circumstances. So those are my two main questions. I can dig it in the bill. That's on me if I didn't find it.
It's in there. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay.
My apologies. It's a long bill, so I'm not finding it at the moment. But
No worries.
maybe
Section 7505.
Thank you.
Problem.
Okay, thank you.
I know we have a lot of comments on it. I will just note that I also do not support not being able to have more than one hearing. Community input is important in the city of Rockville. I do support finding ways to get things done faster, but and that includes from permitting to the process by which things come to us. Sometimes it can take a long time. But I think that community input is important, and to say that the planning commission can have a hearing and we can't, or vice versa, I don't think is fair. Especially people have to make decisions without getting input from the public. So I would not support that component of it. There are several other things I do support, but I just wanted to note that community input has been such an important part of Rockville. Councilmember Shaw. Oh, sorry. Councilmember Valeri. Valeri.
Right. No, that was really funny. So I will respectfully disagree with Madam Mayor. The problem with extended hearings on developments is that it is still not inclusive. It's still not representative of the scope and the breadth of what a particular neighborhood, the city, area actually feels on a development. It feels very much like, and can feel like an echo chamber, the way that public hearings are done as of right now. You push it out, the people who are able to either send an email or they come in person, but that's a whole nother level of like that sort of availability to be able to provide that in-person feedback. And sometimes in person is reacted to better than email. It's very convoluted. Long story short, I don't think that, I don't think the intent behind limiting the number of hearings is a bad one. I would want, again, to know more detail, but too many times I've seen the same people show up for the same hearings and with the same points. And I just think, I don't know, that doesn't really add anything to the discussion.
Councilmember Shaw.
I agree mostly with my colleagues, and I just wanted to add to the point in really trying to apply an equity lens with public hearings. Mostly underserved communities, most marginalized communities may get the notice of a public hearing and may not get the notice of public hearing. So shortening the time frame and are typically on the final stages of the community outreach where they receive information. So shortening the time frame may actually have a negative impact on communities that need the housing the most. I will also say that I'm actually fine with one hearing if that does not preclude other creative ways in which we can intentionally and directly connect with communities that are rent burdened, for example. And I know that public hearings in a lot of ways can be exclusive, like language, for example, can exclude a number of community members. And the time of the public hearing can exclude a number of folks. So I think there's a different lens in which we should look at this particular measure. And I think we should just take our time and figure out what is best for Rockville to ensure that those who are most burdened by housing have their voices heard on projects.
Thank you. I will just note, having been on mayor and council, I have seen that projects can take a significant amount of time, which has an impact on how quickly housing gets onto the market. So that's the lens at which I look at it, as well as, you know, more housing in a timely manner will help support our COG goals, will help support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that's the spirit of which I said. I will also note that I have seen several projects improve through input that our community has provided. They walk the streets, they live in the community, and even some of the development partners have said, we heard this and we made some adjustments before it came to mayor and council. So I just wanted to share that experience and how it has helped. I also have seen that there are things where it's attempts to try to just stall the project altogether, and so that is a concern. But I do think that doing away with input processes might hurt the community. I do think that we have to find ways to get things done faster, though. Councilmember Van Grack.
I'm just going to echo what a lot of my colleagues have said. I think there's a lot of good in this bill. And I like the laudable goals that I think a lot of the mayor and council have here. But I think some of the details, such as the lack of a clear definition of unreasonable restrictions, some of the concerns about what it might tie us with regard to our zoning ordinances, makes me a little bit concerned. And I echo and I like to hear staff saying that I think we need to go back and look about, like the MML said, with amendments. There's laudable goals here, but how, sometimes, as they would say, the devil's in the details. And I think it needs some refinement.
Dr. Miles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I associate myself with the comments, particularly my colleague to the right, Councilmember Fulton. I think there's a reason we call it an adequate public facilities ordinance. I do agree that housing is an issue. We have to do better by it, but we also must make sure we have the infrastructure to support it. And as a colleague at the end said, Councilmember Van Grack, it's all about the details. And I do look forward to seeing more on those so that we can work with the governor to achieve this much needed goal. That's all.
I'm just looking to make sure there are no other questions or comments. I have a few. Do we have any manufactured housing that has come before the city in recent years?
That's a good question. Director Barker is on the line. Director, can you answer that question?
I think that's another concern. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. That is another concern with the wording. Most of the terms should be modular units instead of manufactured homes. We don't know, there are some parts of construction that's done modularly off-site. So I'm not sure the entire structures are built modularly, brought on site, but this is a way of the future, trying to develop green buildings off-site, as well as reduce the cost of these of housing itself. So to answer your question, I'm not familiar with that we've received those things as a whole housing unit, but that's something that probably we should consider in the future.
Thank you. So would you recommend that they change the language to modular
Yes.
versus manufactured? So that's, I think I'm okay with that. Does anyone have any comments about that? Okay, if we decide to, this is just good information to have. The other, and I will just note that I know there's a lot of studies going on about this topic right now, and how a lot of housing was done that way in the past and then it kind of stopped. I also know that it's hard to find financing for this kind of housing right now. Hope maybe there'll be something in the future that looks to that, but I do think the infrastructure for this whole process needs to be more deeply explored. I don't know if Mr. Barker, if you have any comments about that.
I have some comments. Y'all brought up some really excellent points that we had thought about as well, especially with the adequate public facilities. Adequate public facilities, some people think that that's a stopping development, but ultimately it's just making sure the city has the adequacy to provide for that development. And so such things as water and sewer, it's either black and white. Either we have adequate utilities to provide to that development, or we don't, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. And so there should be some concerns with that, in the sense of saying that if this bill's providing financing, that one of those things should be considered about, how do we make sure these have infrastructures. The other thing to add, and I know this was something that we saw in the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission comments, is one of the big things with affordability is the impact fees that some jurisdictions charge, like Montgomery County. And I think their comments were considering waiving those for all these types of housing. Those can cause up to 60,000 or more cost to each of the houses. So that's kind of all that I would add right now.
Thank you. I was just going to note that I also have concerns about usurping local authority on the APFO. Again, we have not used it to stop housing. Right now, there is not an area of Rockville under moratorium. I do think it's good to just reflect and make sure that, we need to look at what infrastructure we have and see how we can improve it so that we can allow housing to go forward. But we need to do that analysis and make sure that we can adequately serve the new residents that are coming, as well as make sure that we just, have the infrastructure needed to run as a city. So I did share that concern. So we talked about manufacturing. Does anyone else have comments on this particular point? Okay. All right, and then we heard from some people on the one public hearing proposal. Does anyone else have a comment on that one, so that we can see where the body lies? I feel like we're 2-2. So, any other comments?
I mean, I guess I should have clarified my point. I mean, not walking it back, but I think much like my other colleagues have stated, perhaps there is a better process for this. And I agree that the more time you're given to engage a community, the more you can get more communities involved in it. The problem is you're still going to run into hurdles. So I think that public hearings may not be the actual best way to gather community input. And I agree with Madam Mayor, although I honestly am trying to think of a positive net good from public hearings, but no, to me it seems often you can get people to come out when they're against something. It's very hard to get people to come out to a public hearing when they're in support of something. It's really, really tough. So I really do like the idea of this. I'm really in that camp. I think that even no matter what happens with this legislation, I think it's something that we could, as a council and mayor, sorry, we could look to find a better way. Because I know I personally, I won't, Mr. Barker knows how many times did you see me in the years, having to go to a bunch of different hearings. And that's just because I'm like that. But I really do like the intent of it. And I think either way, maybe it's something that we could work on the city level.
And for question for staff, right now in the city, and this is one of the reasons why I like hearings, there is a requirement that a mailing has to go out to everybody, whereas other community forums are just saying some things on agenda. That doesn't happen where that specific required every unit, every household must be notified happens. And so I just wanted to flag, so right now people are notified at least twice.
In theory. In theory, through USPS and
They should be if everything's working well, but yes, I
Exactly.
agree, not everything always works well
Exactly.
with mailings, but,
Yeah.
and it may not
Well-
necessarily have to be mailings in the future, but just, Mr. Barker, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that, is something I think staff would recommend be explored, because there are some requirements, and it's not clear in the code, is that whenever a development item comes before a body, a decision-making body, then a notice is required to happen. So what you get is more than just the public hearing, and that kind of causes a additional cost and perhaps might not yield what we're looking for. And I know sometimes, we depend on mail, but maybe there are some other forms that we need to explore for greater outreach than just mail. Because I think Councilmember Shaw basically said it right, is that, sometimes, these public hearings aren't good forums for gathering, input because of the timing and the ability to get out. So, perhaps we need to explore something. To answer your question, they do get, ample notification, and I think it is most definitely maybe a little bit over the top that we might want to consider. But I agree with that public hearings should be something that we continue to support. I think the big issue here is that these projects, you might go through different stages. It might have to go through a project plan, or might have to go through a site plan. It might be a public hearing on a variance. So there's a variety of things that, just because of the timing of it, they don't all go together. And so, not having that public forum on certain items, I think, might not be genuine to the community to at least give an opportunity to have a voice.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Fulton and then Councilmember Miles.
I just wanted to clarify on the public hearing. My position that I would not be in favor of the preventing more than one is not that I think we necessarily need more than one. It's kind of to get to what Councilmember Shaw said. We need to preserve flexibility to do it right. So there might be circumstances in which you need more than one on some project, and there might be circumstances in which you can get away with less. I'd prefer for us to have the ability to make those calls and adapt as we need, and not just have that artificial restriction, as we all have the same laudable goal as the bill does. That's where I'm coming from.
I'm relatively agnostic. I think that to the point that Councilmember Shaw raised, it's not so much a matter of quantity but quality. So if it can be done in one, great. If not, then whatever. But I'm relatively agnostic on the issue, other than the fact that it does need to happen. A public hearing of some form or fashion does need to happen.
Thank you. And did we get any feedback from the Planning Commission, because they could potentially have to make a recommendation without having a public hearing? Because I'm assuming that we may want to be the ones to have the public hearing if there's only one. Right? We're going to have it. So.
That probably would be a concern from the Planning Commission, because they want to make the best recommendation to you as possible, and public input is important to provide that to you and make adjustments if they deem it's worthwhile.
Thank you. I think it's worth sharing this with the Planning Commission just to get their thoughts, because they are a body that has to, make decisions based on things that come before them, and it just would be interesting to get their feedback as well. Councilmember Jackson.
Thanks. I'll be brief, Madam Mayor. I want to say that I associate myself with Councilmember Fulton's comments. I think that having more than one hearing is important for our city. So you asked, for the will of the body, and that's why I fall on it.
Thank you. And what about the APFO?
What about it?
Do you have any opinions, just if we do take a position that staff knows where the body lies?
Yeah, no, I feel like the APFO, we need it. We need to make sure that we have adequate public facilities when we're looking at adding development. So I would be taking that position. kind of against that in the bill.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Graff.
Yeah, and I'll just be brief with regard to the APFO. Well, like I said before, within the details of this bill, I think it's too restrictive. With regard to hearings, I don't necessarily think that it's a 1 versus 2 concern, because I think, again, how that's played out by the city to maintain its control to make sure that the voices of the public are heard is more important. And I think what we've got right now works. Could there be a situation where the city has only 1 hearing before the mayor and council, yet we still get the voice of the community to the planning commission and the mayor and council? Yes. So I don't want to restrict that, but I also don't think we need to upset the apple cart and change the way we're doing things currently.
I have a question that may not be able to be answered this evening, but can you share with us where there might be conflicts with our comprehensive plan? And maybe that could be sent to us in an email before our next meeting.
I can provide some preliminary observations. There, within our comprehensive plan, council deliberately provided certain areas for missing middle housing and additional density within residential communities. And I know that within having it within 1 mile radius of the rail station, that gets into a lot of our existing established residential communities. And I know that it's important to provide opportunities for more housing, but that could run contrary to our comprehensive plan.
Is there anything else related to the comp plan? Or that's the big one?
That's probably the big one. Yeah, that's the one that I would highlight. Also, the other thing is that right now there's certain residential zones. They don't mention all the different types of residential zones, and we, as a staff, would recommend that they expand it to all areas that offer residential development, so that we can get different types of middle housing in a little bit medium density residential projects and zoning districts.
Thank you. I will note that there are some things in our comp plan that we added new to this plan versus in previous plans, where we had this idea of offering density bonuses if there was more affordability. So I think there is some alignment there with the intent of what the comp plan does. I do tend to have concern with usurping total local authority, because there was a lot of work that went to the comp plan. But I generally support what is trying to be done, that we need to get more units. There's 96,000 across the state of Maryland. We have certain commitments as well, but that is something I would just caution. And if there's anything else that we can get just between now and the next meeting, if there could be more examination on areas of conflict with our comp plan, that would be greatly appreciated. Any other
Certainly.
comments?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, would it be okay? I think Ms. Casemeyer wanted to talk with us. Ms. Casemeyer?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Speak a little louder, please.
Oh, okay. Usually I speak too loud. So just a couple of things real quick, having listened to this whole discussion. And this is really more process for your consideration and timing. The House hearing is on 2/20, which means 2/18 is when testimony would need to be submitted. So I don't know whether you all are meeting next week or not. I don't know if you meet every Monday or not. So one thing I would suggest, because it sounds like you have raised a lot of really good questions and issues, but yet are overall supportive of the initiative, and some of you being more new to elected office and working in Annapolis, hopefully this is what we can help you with, is it's okay to provide oral testimony where you support the intent of the bill, raise generally some issues that you think require clarification, so that there's some general on the record, and you're therefore sort of tied in with any further subcommittee work and any other deliberations. you may or may, and I would also encourage you, as Ms. Moran said, and I know that you all do, MML obviously as an entity, you're going to have many of your other municipalities, that maybe not many, but some of them are going to have probably some of the similar connections that you do. You do not necessarily have to have them all defined before the hearing or know all of what you have to do. Sometimes you can just give examples and conclude with statements like, we look forward to working with the administration on this notable goal, but many of these issues will first have to be addressed or something like that. I don't need to keep going on. I think you probably understand what I'm trying to say. And then I would suggest one thing. I think you've raised multiple issues. So obviously the devil's in the detail on these kinds of very, very well-intentioned proposals, but sometimes need a lot of tweaking even to get to what their objectives are. And so there aren't unintended consequences for the city. The one area I would ask you to have your legal counsel look at again, not all the other issues, some of which I understood what you were saying and some of which I didn't, but the part in the bill about the hearings. I could be wrong about this, but I would read this that it's only one public hearing at each of these entities, not one amongst all four of them. And I could be very wrong on that, but I think the point behind this, as I think it is with many provisions in the bill that are probably a little bit perceived as overly aggressive, is there may be other entities where someone could end up having 2 or 3 hearings before the council, 2 or 3 hearings before the planning commission, in terms of delay. And I think this is saying one hearing before each of the entities, not one hearing total. So that's just one small issue. There's obviously a lot of other substantive questions, issues, clarifications, but I just wanted to put that out there for a process approach to how you want to move forward.
Thank you. And do we have confirmation on that? This is one each.
It's 7506.
What page is that? Oh, I'm looking at the actual bill. Never mind. I'll find it.
And this
I see it.
This is as of right now too. Like, the fact remains, there's still time. Things could be negotiated. This language could change. Correct, Ms. Casemeyer, Linda?
Yes. It very well could change.
Yeah.
And with these bills, it
I want
often
for
does.
perspective. We're all very much like reacting to the language as it is right this second, and recognizing that with amendments means a lot of these issues might go away, they might get better, they might get worse. I just wanted to flag that for posterity.
Yeah, so I think in general, we definitely want to have this heavily tracked. I do think there are some clarifications or even things that we can say, like, we want to make sure there is at least one hearing, or if, depending on where we net out, but just being able to ask probing questions in a way that will share and get more clarity for us. So we have 2 thoughts. One is we could testify on the 20th with the things that we have agreed to tonight and share our questions, so that is on record. We also could, at our next meeting on 2/26, have more details from staff so that we can have more a more refined and fine opportunity to kind of weigh in. I know there's some areas where we agree and disagree. Ms. Casemeyer, I hear that you're saying at least to get started on the 20th, but I just wanted to say that those are 2 options that we need to consider.
Yeah, and you don't need to weigh in on the 20th. You could do it either way, because also you can not weigh in at one hearing and still be very engaged in the process going forward. These bills are going to take a lot of work on both sides. I just wanted you to know, I think you could do it either way and still be able to preserve your desire to be more specific. So I wasn't saying you had to weigh in at the House. I just wanted you to know there's a way to do it without having had that. It's either one works. Either one works.
And Ms. Moran, I wonder if we can find out from MML when they're coming out with their recommendations, because that's something I think this body would like to consider. And I'm seeing my peripheral vision shaking heads.
Yes, we'd be happy to do that. When we checked with them a week or so ago, they hadn't developed them yet, but I'm happy to check back and see if they have and just let them know. You know, I can certainly share some of the comments from the mayor and council and just ask them where they are with theirs and how we might collaborate and what approach they're taking.
Thank you. So what say you? Do we want to wait or testify on 220? Why don't we just go down the line and see where everyone stands?
My vote would be to hold for the time being.
Thank you.
Wait for more information.
Wait.
Wait. Wait. Okay, it's clear. This will be on the agenda for 226.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Could we take we have a few more for you, but that's the governor's housing package, so thank you for working with us on that. There are a couple of more bills. HB 263, State Highway Administration, Sidewalks and Bicycle Pathways, Maintenance and Repair. This bill was introduced at the request of Montgomery County. The bill would require the State Highway Administration to maintain and repair sidewalks on state roads. The legislation aligns with the Mayor and Council's Vision Zero priority. There was a bill drafting error made by the state's Department of Legislative Services. They drafted the bill to include language that would require local governments to be responsible for removal of snow and ice from sidewalks. So Montgomery County worked with the bill sponsor, who had an amendment drafted to remove the language, and Montgomery County is a support with amendment, and staff is recommending that the city of Rockville take a position of support with amendment.
Just a clarification, I know that you added the attachments to the agenda. Were these specific bills also added to the online agenda that was updated?
Yes, everything that was sent, my understanding is that everything that was sent to the mayor and council on Friday was attached. Is that?
Madam Mayor, if I could, this bill is what the mayor and council have been seeking for a while. They've gone on record in previous to do this. They've asked me to advance this measure. This is what we really want with the amendment of removing the snow and ice. We constantly fight to get the State Highway Administration to maintain these wide sidewalks, and this bill would solve that issue.
Okay, thank you. I think we're all going to be in agreement. From knowing my colleagues, we'll see how it goes. However, for a point of transparency for the listening public, I don't think this has been added to the agenda, and we have to do that.
Agreed. We got it by email on February 9th at 7:30, but it did not make it into the agenda. The next one did, HB 1136, around the youth services bureaus, but this one did not make it in HB 263. We touched on it before in the last batch of Vision Zero related and adjacent bills, but specifically with some of the recommendations, this was not in our packet.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask the staff go back and look to make sure that we have a complete record of what we're discussing here, and that it be added. And then I'm just gonna look for a thumbs up just to get a sense of where people are. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion that we move forward on supporting this bill and assigning someone to work on it.
I move that, I'm sorry, you should probably recognize me first. I'm sorry, I need more coffee.
Councilmember Valera, you may speak.
I'm sorry. I move that Mayor and Council support HB 263, State Highway Administration Sidewalks and Bicycle Pathways Maintenance and Repair. And that we direct staff to draft testimony and or letter.
Are anyone willing to work on this letter with staff?
I'm interested in that one.
You are, okay.
And I'm happy to help
Okay,
whoever.
both of them will work on this together, Councilmember Jackson and Fulton. Thank you.
I second.
Okay. All right, there's been a motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Perfect, it's unanimous. I didn't see that there was a bill hearing scheduled as of Friday, so we don't know yet.
Now, we've been checking consistently throughout the session, and for a reason, it has not been scheduled, but we can still move forward with getting the testimony prepared, so hopefully that when the bill hearing comes, we're ready to go.
Okay, and just a flag, I will be in Annapolis the 29th and the 1st. In case there is anything I need to testify on, I'll be there already.
Ms. Moran.
Oh, wait, Councilor Valeri.
Sorry. God, I give up today. I believe, was this the bill that was moved to appropriations? Because I vaguely recall.
It's been introduced. It may be with appropriations, but the hearing hasn't been assigned. I'm going to check. I don't have the General Assembly website in front of me. It's been assigned to a committee, but it's kind of been sitting there for a few weeks.
And I don't know if Ms. Kaesmeyer's still on, but I think that's why I got confused, because I was everything else, Vision Zero and State Highway related was at the when we all went up together. So thank you.
Thank you. And if we could just get periodic updates on these bills that we are saying that we're interested in, so that we can see how they're tracking.
Yes, we will make sure these are reflected in the tracking charts, and also there'll be updates in our state lobbying team's biweekly reports that they send on legislation.
Thank you. And not on this list, I did see that there are some bills proposed to be changing the cannabis legislation.
Actually, we have one that we were going to bring up at the end that we were going to mention to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll hold. If we can move forward with then preparing testimony, as we already have moved, and then we can move on to HB 1136, Human Services Youth Services Bureau. This is in the agenda packet, and we did get a summary from staff on this. Do you want to share a few words about that before we discuss?
Sure. Thank you. Happy to do that. And also Frederica Granger is also on the line, and she's an expert on this topic area. So HB 1136 restores state funding that was cut in FY20 for youth service bureaus. In this bill, starting in FY26, each youth service bureau would receive $200,000, and there would be a $50,000 local match. So state youth service bureaus provide programming that ameliorates the conditions that contribute to delinquency, youth suicide, drug and alcohol use disorder, and family disruption. Rockville was a former youth service bureau and can easily comply with the regulations as it had done in the past. The Community Services Division in the Housing and Community Development Department would take the lead. This legislation would support the expansion of Rockville programs for low-income youth and families, and it would provide support for success in the home and the community with programs such as school-based, community-based mental health services, youth mentoring, and other programs that are provided in MCPS schools throughout the city. Currently, the county and city are funding the programming. The city's portion is 58%, and the county's portion is 42%. So this aligns with an ongoing mayor and council priority to support youth development, put them in positive activities, keep them engaged, and help to set them up for success. So staff is recommending a position of support.
Colleagues, I will just request that we support this. I think that it aligns with what we need, and we've all been talking about public safety is a continuum, and we have to help prevent issues before they get to the point of arrest. So I think I'm seeing shaking heads. I will entertain a motion. I'm happy to help work on this letter. Anyone else want to weigh in or have comments?
I was just going to move.
I'll accept the motion.
I will move that the body supports HB 1136 and appoints the mayor to work on with the staff on testimony.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All right, one more.
Great. There's one more. And if the mayor and council would approve, we'd like to bring one more bill. It has to do with the regulation of cannabis establishments. It's SB 537, Cannabis Licensee Location and Restrictions. And actually with this one, I'm going to ask Ricky Barker to go over this bill with you and talk to you about this. And I could come back.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky.
Yeah.
Director.
This is an amendment to an existing bill that was approved last year which prohibit the establishments of these types of retail establishments locating within 500 feet of certain pre-existing sensitive properties, such as recreational centers, parks, and primary schools, as well as licensed childcare and family daycare. This bill also restricts it so that it can't be located within 1,000 feet of another dispensary. And so, from staff standpoint, we would support this clarification on this existing law, but we would want to have some language to ensure that these dispensaries would only locate in those areas zoned for retail type uses. Staff did do a map that kind of took these limitations, and based on that map in Rockville, there is a very limited places that these dispensaries can locate, mainly along South Rockville Pike and some in north on 355. But we feel like it does provide adequate restrictions, and we would support it with some clarifying language.
Can I ask a question? So this is just preventing them from being 1,000 feet within each other, right?
Well, no, I mean, the existing bill, and Mr. DeMay is on the line too, that he probably has dove in this a little bit more. But existing legislation, already had that in there. It's just they were providing some clarification in this bill. So we feel like that the clarification is worthwhile to do. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know if Mr. DeMay has anything else to add.
Sure. So one of the challenges with the original bill that was passed in the last legislative session was that it uses the phrase unduly burden. And the phrase itself is one that as it currently exists is undefined, and it doesn't make it entirely clear what sort of zoning restrictions a local jurisdiction would put on cannabis dispensaries that would constitute an undue burden to that particular use. This bill attempts to define undue burden by effectively stating, anything other than the setbacks that the original bill proposed, as modified by this amendment. It includes, I think, an additional setback, constitutes an undue burden. And what Mr. Barker is referring to when he talks about retail uses is that, when we do zoning in Rockville, we first, we put zones on the ground. Within each zone, there are certain uses that are allowed, and then some of those uses have additional standards like setbacks from other sensitive uses. And so what we want to ensure is that this bill still allows us to do use-based restrictions in our zones, and that zones like our single-family zones that don't allow any retail uses at all would still be allowed to prevent dispensaries from locating there. If the only restrictions on dispensaries under state law are sort of setbacks from other uses like churches, parks, and things like that, it's conceivable that there could be areas of, for example, single-family zoning where a dispensary would be able to locate. And I think we're all confident that the sponsor of the bill is not proposing something like that, but we want some additional clarity, and I'm happy to answer any more questions that you might have.
Colleagues, you have questions? Councilmember Larry.
Shocking no one. This question is for Mr. DeMay, Mr. Barker, or Ms. Moran. Could we get, nothing fancy, I don't need a lot of, just a chart of 3 retail uses? So beer and wine, vape shops, and cannabis dispensaries and the relevant municipal code, county code, state code / regulation, you know what I'm talking about. I want to see just everything all in one spot, quite frankly, because taking the 1,000 feet between two different dispensaries is different, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure Mr. DeMay would tell me, is a different regulation than any other retail use such as beer and wine or vape shop retail use, correct?
It is somewhat unique. I know there are some special exceptions in the city that may have setbacks from other similar special exceptions. I'm not specifically sure about beer and wine stores, and Mr. Barker might be able to answer that question.
And not to put either of you on the spot, and I apologize for doing just exactly that.
And if you need to come back to us to just be able to, have more time, I think we'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I definitely would be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clarification. So, what, Councilmember Valeria, what are you trying to achieve with the locations of these other two uses?
No, basically I want to see if what this is proposing is more onerous on cannabis dispensaries than any other sensitive retail use or whatever the phraseology is. That's why I said to compare it to beer and wine or vape shops, all these, age-restricted retailers. I wanted to see where cannabis dispensaries fall on that, because some of these regulations are only coming about because of recreational. And is this going to be applied to recreational cannabis dispensing or both medical and recreational? I'm trying to get a grasp on what has all of a sudden changed, because we've had legalized medical cannabis for some time now. So I can only presume that this is because everybody is more concerned now that recreational has come online. I just don't want, I'm personally, I think it is equally troublesome if two beer and wine stores are within 1,000 feet of each other, if two vape stores are within 1,000. I mean, I just don't like treating any of them separate and distinct. And that's just me.
So that is more of a broader question than specific to this particular bill.
Correct. But that's why I was trying to understand basically where that falls as far as our own regulations, because that would affect whether or not I'd be okay personally with this.
Madam Mayor, I could, if it's helpful, I could try to provide a little bit of clarity on Councilmember Valeri's questions.
Okay.
Just very quickly, the two things that are worth noting are the restriction on locating on a dispensary locating within 1,000 feet of another dispensary is currently law. That is the status quo right now. That is in the Maryland Code, and it's not proposed to be changed by this particular bill. The only setback that this bill is modifying is adding places of worship to the 500-foot restriction that currently exists for primary or secondary schools, licensed childcare centers, playgrounds, recreation centers, libraries, and public parks. So they're adding churches effectively, churches and other places of worship to that list. The other thing I wanted to point out as well is effectively, after the passage of the 2023 law, the concept of a medical dispensary is kind of going away. I think grandfathered medical dispensaries can continue to exist, but generally speaking, I'm assuming that most of them are going to transfer their licenses to allow the sale of recreational cannabis as well. So I just wanted to make sure those two points were there. I think the 1,000-foot restriction is there now, and it's likely to stay. It's probably not going to be changed by this bill.
I have a question relating, thank you for the clarification. I have a question related to understanding, and I'm reading the bill, line 19 and line 25. I just want some clarity. So right now, you can be within 500 feet of a primary or secondary school. Is that correct? Because it says, except as provided, and it says 500 feet of a primary or secondary school in the state or a licensed childcare center. But then it seems to note 1,000 feet. I just want to, is it 1,000 feet or 500 feet for schools? Is it?
As I read it, it's you can be no closer than 500 feet from a school.
And then for place of worship or a library, is it 500 or 1,000 feet?
Again, as I read it, it's 500 feet.
Okay, and
The 1,000 foot is the only thing that applies to the 1,000 foot restriction are other dispensaries.
Okay, yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is it should be 1,000 feet of schools, but I do support the clarity on the 1,000 feet of another dispensary. Having visited other municipalities where it's like 3 doors down, they're popping up, and it just maybe it's because it's an easier thing to rent out to. I don't know, but I appreciate staff raising this, and I'm okay with the clarity.
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, when we did the map, because there's so many setbacks from different types of things, it covers almost all the city, like I said, and I do have that map, and I can share it with you all and send it to you. But yeah, it is really over restricted, so I'm not sure adding another, to 1,000 feet would still do anything other than because we still have those restrictions in place for all these other uses overlapping each other, and
Got
so
it.
that
So
might
within
be
Rockville, it would not be within 1,000, 500 feet of a school.
right. There's
Effectively.
just so many of these restrictions that it really limits where these things can be located. And to answer Councilmember Valeri's question is that yeah, this is most definitely more restrictive than ABC stores and smoke shops at this time.
Thank you. All right, I see a question from Councilmember Van Grack, and then I'll go back to Councilmember Valeri.
And just to clarify, within this bill, the existing law is there. We're just doing the bolded and the brackets that is changing to the existing law. Is that right, Nick? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct, Councilmember.
Councilmember Valeri.
So I was really confused because I feel like I recall during the medical cannabis implementation that houses of worship were included. And the reason why I feel that they might have been included in the list of I can't forget, I don't know what the term is, setbacks, I think is what you call them, like schools and parks and so forth. Okay. I feel like houses of worship were part of the medical cannabis dispensary regulations because I recall this discussion occurring in Prince George's County, which has a lot of houses of worship, and then trying to figure out where then could an actual dispensary be located. So that was one thing that kind of popped into my head. And then, of course, like a dispensary may not explicitly say medical only, but there are still medical cannabis users that need access to medical cannabis. And so, as my colleagues all know, I want to ensure that medical cannabis patients still have access to the medicine that they need in order to live pain-free, to live seizure-free. And I am intensely uncomfortable with restricting that access because I know how important it is to people with a wide variety of medical conditions, including a lot of people with multiple sclerosis like my dad had.
Thank you for your comment. So you are not in favor of supporting this? Just to clarify.
I am not in favor of supporting this.
Can I just go down the, we'll start off with Dr. Miles this term. And Councilman Fulton, do you have a clarifying question? Go ahead.
sorry, am I right that what we would be supporting boils down to adding house of worship to the list of things not to be within 500 feet of, and defining unduly burdensome as essentially anything less than what's in here? That's essentially what we're being asked to support. Is that right?
No, because there's also the bottom parts about this, what the political subdivision may or may not adopt with the ordinances.
It's a section E and F.
I'm looking at it.
And just while you're all reviewing, my read is that subsection E that you're looking at right now, that's 36410E on line 2 of page 4, is kind of just repeating what was already stated on line 5 of page 2.
Right.
Again, that the political subdivision can't establish zoning restrictions more restrictive than those provided in the article. We did not talk about subsection F, which has to do with zoning restrictions for licensed grower cultivating, or licensed growers, cultivating cannabis outdoors. I think part of the reason we haven't talked about it is because it's, as I understand, staff should correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a likely use in the city. But we're happy to talk about that as well.
So just to clarify, E and F are not new, they're restatements, because I had always understood that to be the case anyway, but I also see that it's new and bolded. Help me understand.
No, E and F that's both new language. As to why E exists at all, I'm not entirely clear why they're adding that. Again, I think it's just belt and suspenders to try to re-emphasize again that, number one, unduly burden means imposing zoning restrictions more restrictive than what are in the subtitle, and then also that we are restricted from imposing zoning requirements for dispensaries that are more restrictive than those under the article. It's, again, as I'm reading it, it's the same thing.
Okay, I know we're at 10:30 and we had some more legislation than we had planned for. However, I do think this is important. I have two questions before we just go down the line to see where we stand. One is, has MML provided input on this? I know they were heavily involved in the cannabis legislation previously.
MML indicated in their meeting that they're going to do a support with amendment. The other day when we were in Annapolis at the hearing for the Vision Zero and the public safety bills, I actually asked their director of policy and research if they'd fleshed those out yet. They had not, but they're going to be working on it, and the staff indicated that they're in conversation with the Cannabis Administration at the state. So we can double back with them and recheck and see where they are, if the mayor and council are interested in what their amendments are going to look like, to see if we could align.
Thank you. I would like that. I think colleagues, you would like that? Okay. Let's try and get that information. What is the timeliness of this bill, and when's the hearing?
I think this bill is on the 21st, the hearing. I don't know if Pam's got the website in front of her, but perhaps would this maybe be a case that the mayor and council might want a little bit more information? And once there's more information, perhaps this is one that the mayor and council would like to discuss again on the 26th?
Yeah, is there still time? I mean, how long do you think this one will take?
I think this one's probably going to take a while as well. Ms. Casemeyer, are you still on the line?
Yes. Okay. Yes, sorry, I missed that last question.
Sure.
Issue. I apologize. I had to, anyway, sorry.
Thank you. I know you're in a couple of meetings here, so I appreciate your time. So SB 537, this is the cannabis licensee locations restrictions.
I listened to most of it until maybe the last minute or two, so I apologize.
Okay. So I think the general sense is this is probably another one of those bills that's going to take a while to work through the session.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so too.
All right, so.
Because I can't imagine that there aren't going to be multiple municipalities or other areas that have questions about how this applies. So I think there'll be some devils in the details again.
Thank you. Colleagues, are you okay with getting more information and having this come back on the 26th? Okay, let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I think that wraps up the list. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you and Pam Kaesmeyer and Councilman Van Graff.
Yeah, I know the meeting's getting late, but I just want to make a comment. I know you've got a lot on your plate, but I know the Environmental Commission the other week talked about, there's a number of bills that I think really follow with what the city's trying to do with regard to environment, energy, natural resources. I mean, I'm happy to go through with the list and with the Environmental Commission with you, but to the extent the city can either provide support or with some of these other bills that I think the city, at least through the Environmental Commission, and I know that a number of other members of the body have talked about, to the extent there might be a bill or two that we could support within that. And I know if you want to talk to the chair of the Environmental Commission, we went through a number of those bills with staff last week. To the extent the mayor and council might be able to support that with either testimony or support, I'd like to be able to consider that.
Thank you. We certainly can do that. We can connect with the chair and the staff, Ms. Shingara and her team. And it's customary that the mayor and council each session weigh in on a couple of environmental bills. So thank you.
Good.
We'll follow up.
That was my recollection as well. Great.
Thank you.
Yes, we have done that every year, but I do think it would be helpful for us to get an email with what they are recommending. I know they just had a meeting, so you might not have had time to do that just yet. But can we get a summary with the bills, and if there's anything that was anything groundbreaking that needs to, we need to get someone out to testify, because we could authorize someone to delegate and to testify. Do we know that or not yet?
Not yet. We'll connect with Ms. Shingara and her team and get back to you. And if there's anything that's, really impactful, we'll can let the mayor and council know what staff recommend and the commission recommends in terms of engagement and testifying.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and let's also just plan to have that come back on the 26th, please. All right. Anything else on 2024 legislation? I have one last question. I'm interested in making sure that I'm aware, and I'm watching the newsletters, but just our D17, if there's needs that we could be supportive of what they're working on, I would like to have a summary of what they're doing. Is everyone okay with that? Doesn't have to be exhaustive, but just 1 or 2 lines.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're moving on to mock agendas. We have 2 items under here. One is the very next mock agenda is for 2/26, and then we have the 90-day outlook. So let's start out with the mock agenda. I will share that I specifically asked our acting city manager about item number 10, which is public hearing for the 900 Rockville Pike. It's my understanding that the applicant is not ready to come before us. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. It is now item 99 on your 90-day preview, which puts it well into May. They are doing some more traffic work and will not be back. That's staff's best estimate of when they might be back.
And just to clarify, this is not mayor and council or staff holding it up. It is the actual applicant.
Correct. They are doing more traffic counts and impacts of using other entrances, et cetera.
Thank you. All right. So we have legislation that will come on and replace that item. I see a lot of consent happening that day, as well as a public safety annual report. I did also check to see if there was anything else that we could move up, and I was told not at this time. Although there's an extensive 90-day list, that none of the items will be ready. Does anyone have any other comments on this date? Councilmember Valeri.
Yeah, so I completely appreciate that, of course, staff have to have items prepared for an agenda item or have materials or a report prepared, but I am always surprised at how little substance a lot of consent and not a lot of presentation or even building in a time for any sort of discussion in the public sphere for us as members of mayor and council. So to that end, I would like for us to see if maybe someone is more ready than previously thought. But I would like to propose a work session, and I say work session, it's not gonna be like a budget one, for us to discuss community outreach and engagement, what we would like to see out of that discussion, how we define it. Is it this, is it that? Because a lot of what we touched on tonight it touches on that when we talk about like development public hearings, when we talk about any of this stuff. So I just want to put that out there into the universe as a possibility, because I think it's something we need to discuss sooner rather than later.
Did you read my paper?
No.
I actually have written
No.
community engagement work session.
Okay, look at in my green version of a paper. No.
I'm just kidding.
That's fine. That's fine.
Councilmember Shaw.
I also had that and raised it. And as you may recall, Councilmember Fulton and I also raised this as a priority within our community engagement within the budget. So preferably it would be best if we had this work session in advance of the budget. And then after, I think after our strategic planning session, somewhere in between, to help to guide some of the way that we're looking at community engagement.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, no, that was it.
Okay, I was just gonna add, I do see this as potentially having more than one bite at this apple. So if staff could help us to, there are some things that we already wanted to move forward on, like town halls, walking sessions. There's some things that we have all discussed that we'd like to start looking at. How do we schedule these out and map them out through the year? What are the topics we want to cover? I actually was at a meeting on Saturday with the Lincoln Park Community Association, and they're interested in a walking meeting. And so I think all of us have shared an interest in this, and perhaps we could have a preliminary discussion ahead of the strategic planning retreat on what are some of the smaller things we might consider to at least get started on improving community engagement.
Madam Mayor, staff is currently working on planning walking town hall meetings per your direction. We're not ready to show you dates or anything yet, but we have that task to go and try to get them over the next couple quarters as an interim measure until you get a more complete community engagement plan that might address it holistically.
Fantastic. So why don't we talk about it on the 26th? So that you can finalize, the list.
I do want to tell you that we have 2 days before they are due, so there's not a whole lot of time left to prepare agenda items for that. But we
I don't think we need
can
to
lay
have
out
a
what
full-
we know right now.
Just an outline, and I don't think that it has to be exhaustive, because I think part of it is that this body wants to provide input.
Okay.
Is that fair? Am I representing you well?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
I just wanted to also add for the work session, what would also be helpful is getting data and analytics on our typical channels in which we try to reach the community, Rockville Report, social media, website, any type of demographic data we can have with that would be really helpful.
So I will just, I appreciate that, and I agree that we need that information. I know that will not be possible by Friday because a brief book comes out, but that's something that we should discuss on what are the things that we want to see to be able to make more informed decisions, and that could be a topic that we cover during the work session. Are you okay with that? Okay, so we're not asking you to present, I know the brief book comes out on Friday, so you don't have a lot of time, but that is something that we want to talk through, is what are the things that we would like to start measuring. Is that?
Yeah, just to clarify, this was for the work session, and
Well, we're proposing to have a work session on the 26th preliminarily to start out mapping out some of the low-hanging fruit of what we'd like to see, but that we would have another discussion on community engagement as it is fleshed out more thoroughly. But we want to provide some input on town hall meetings as well as the walking town meetings and any of the low-hanging fruit that we want to see moved on.
Madam Mayor, I would suggest that staff is going to submit for your consideration that at the retreat that the mayor and council consider adopting an initiative to write a outreach and engagement plan and to possibly hire an outside consultant to help us do that in the longer run.
I will say I personally appreciate that. I know we talked about the need for an outreach plan. I think that's something we can discuss further. I do think that there are things before we have any plan that we don't want to have to wait a year for.
I concur with that. I'm just suggesting that maybe there's two separate.
Two parts, yes.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to add that to the 26th. Did you have a final comment or question? Councilmember Larry?
Yeah, sorry. See, I was like, I was going to not just speak. No, the way I was envisioning this did not require any work for the brief book. To go into any plan, you have to get a sense of strategically how the mayor and council are envisioning. So there's tactics and there's strategy, and I almost said strategery because it's 10:45. And I think that tactics are things like the walking town halls, but the overall goal and the strategy of how we want to do engagement and community outreach in the best way possible, in a way that's never been done before, is more of a discussion among ourselves. And I think that's a discussion that's worth public input.
Thank you. I'll agree. I still want to have at least covering some of the short-term tactics so we're not stalling on engagement. And I totally agree that we need a longer range, more holistic plan. Councilmember Shaw.
Just a final comment. I do think it's important for us to have the community engagement session following our GARE training so we can better apply an equity lens to the way in which we're looking at how we're reaching the city and who is not being reached. So I would just put that recommendation as the second part following our GARE training.
So you're okay with us still proceeding on 26, but that we'll have another follow-up. And I do think this is going to take more than one discussion. Okay, wonderful. That's on the 26th. Any other comments for the 26th? I note that we have several MPDU sales agreements. Is something I had asked about. Are we still good to have those come forward on consent?
They will come forward on consent. They probably will not all come forward on 226 consent.
Okay, so we will find out Friday that some of them will come forward, but maybe not all.
Correct. We're working very closely with the city attorney's office and the applicants and their attorneys to finalize them, and there's some changes that are going back and forth.
Okay. Is there anything that is going to delay projects from moving forward?
No, I do not believe so. They've been given building permits for many of these, so I don't think any of these are holding anything up. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I wanted to point out one other change. We just received this afternoon a notice from the congressional offices that the deadline from Senator Cardin's office for FY25 earmarks will be March 8th. We had scheduled that item to come to the Mayor and Council on March 18th, realizing that the FY24 earmarks hadn't yet been announced yet because the budget hasn't been finalized. And so we took a good estimate of when we could bring this in. So it's going to have to be moved up. We're proposing that item, which is number 57 on your list, be moved up to March 4th so we can get your guidance before the deadlines come forward from the congressional offices.
Thank you. If staff could also share material, I think you'll definitely want to share material before us. So will you brief book this item and
Yes.
get us advance notice so that we can weigh in? Because I know that in the past we've had some refinement.
Yeah, it was brief booked and ready, going to go on 3/18. We're just proposing moving it up one meeting to meet that congressional deadline.
Okay,
You will receive a full agenda packet.
perfect. I'm not seeing any opposition to that. All right, last call on the 26th. All right, let's move to the 90-day agenda. Any questions or comments? I have a couple, and I shared some with the city manager, but I will hold to see if my colleagues have anything to say first. Okay. So I know that the Rockville Economic Development, Inc., did you have something?
I can go after.
Okay, thank you. Rockville Economic Development, Inc., MOU, as well as the Rockville Town Square MOU, need to be done before June, or by June. And so my request would be that I know it's not penciled in 90-day yet in terms of a date, but that we would have that for review by early April, so that we have time to be able to have input and feedback. Is that a possibility?
So these aren't MOUs there. So the READY agreement is a funding agreement, and we should be able to get that by early April. The agreement with Moorguard, we'll strive for that, but that's a little more complicated in that it hasn't been done before. So.
And that's also due by June, or not?
Well, it's not necessarily as due by June, because at this point, it's something, again, that hasn't been done before. So it really will be up to mayor and council to decide whether to either levy the taxes that the city could levy and raise the funding to accomplish what you'd like in the square, or instead of levying the taxes, the mayor and council could enter into an agreement with Moorguard whereby the mayor and council would agree to not levy taxes for a period of time, say 5 years, and in exchange, Moorguard would accomplish some of the goals that the mayor and council would like to have done in the square. So again, this hasn't been done before, so it's a little more complicated.
Okay, 2 questions on that, and thank you for the explanation. There was an agreement with Moorguard. Is there not a current agreement with Moorguard?
So that agreement was an interim management agreement. It's been interim since 2011. It really doesn't accomplish what the mayor and council would want it to accomplish. It's not very good. And so again, this would be something completely different rather than kicking the ball down the road another year.
Thank you. And when does the interim management agreement expire?
It is June 30th?
Yeah, right. So that's why I'm trying to say that.
Right, but again, expire or not, that agreement really doesn't do a lot for the city. For instance, in that interim management agreement, the city has agreed that Moorguard would do a lot of work on its own property that isn't required anyway. So when I say that this new agreement is something that really should have been done a while ago, and that it's different, we wouldn't want to kick that ball down the road again.
So a matter of process, would you want to get our input on the general tenets of the agreement versus just drafting it and then may not be in a particular direction?
Yes, that is the plan, which is why I can't say beginning of April, yes.
Okay, so we're not going to necessarily see a draft in April, but you're going to query us to see what direction we want to go in?
Again, right now, I'm trying to see how much. It's a process. So it's a process. I really can't say.
Okay. Can we get an email? Just let us know what we're thinking about in terms of timing. My only request is that, like, if it expires on the 30th, do we just do an extension, or, that we have time to debate the topic? Because.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Because even if it were to expire on the 30th, again, it really doesn't do anything. It's just something that's sort of been in place as window dressing.
There's some things that I recall from in there that are nice to have. I agree with you that it needs to be a lot more thorough, but perhaps you can send this current body at least what is in place right now, because I don't think the new council members have seen that.
Okay.
Is that something you'd be interested in seeing? Just at least what's currently there?
Sure, it'll be a follow-up on that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so the other issue that I had is, do we need to agendize or do a letter to CSX? I'm hearing that they've gone dark on us and not responded to you on the flag, or do you have updated information on the CSX painting of the bridge? The Cultural Arts Commission has wanted to do this. The several associations on the east side of Rockville has wanted to do this, and I just, wanted to see what help do we need? Do we need to write a letter? Like, what help do you need to help advance this?
I'm a little confused. There's two separate issues. Are you talking about removing the offensive graffiti, or are you talking about the artwork we're trying to do, or both?
I'm talking about both.
Okay, so the offensive graffiti, we do not have anything. Mr. Woods is on. I'm not sure if he has anything more to help report. Mr. Woods, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, the latest on that is that CSX has hired a consultant to work with the city to establish an agreement that would allow for the city to access the CSX right away and paint over the offensive graffiti that exists. We had hoped that this will be a more simple process, but as we've learned, really with anything at CSX, access to the right-of-way is very sensitive and safety is paramount. So they will not allow us to access their right-of-way until such time that they have safety spotters in place and a right of entry agreement established. So although we offered to perform the work on their behalf to expedite the process, it actually introduces several layers of agreements that we otherwise would not have anticipated. Our preference is still for CSX to take care of the work themselves, and we've put pressure on them to do so. But as of now, it stands in our court to execute an agreement with them to paint over the graffiti.
Councilman Valeri.
Is this agreement, is it a one-time agreement, I'm presuming, or is it an ongoing agreement should new graffiti be put up?
No, unfortunately, it's a one-time agreement because it requires insurance and specific right of entry agreements for specific personnel to access the site.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for that. The irony being that there's multiple access points all along the tracks, and that they are concerned about insurance is kind of laughable. Sorry.
Thank you. In terms of process, do you think you're really going to get two bites at this apple, that they're going to let us go up there another time to do something more artistic, or should, given how long this is taking, can we just paint something?
I have to your second question, I think you're now referring to, I have no new information, and I'm not sure I hold out any hope for that at this point.
I'm just wondering if there could be, if we could, since this is going to take a long time and it seems to be slow, if we could engage communities on, can we put a positive slogan? Can we put color, just something, because we know that it's going to go and get graffitied again. So, and something in place of a blank slate might help to reduce the graffiti. And I know the Cultural Arts Commission and several associations have been asking for this for years. So if we're going to get a chance, we might as well really take it.
That is not the request we made of CXX. We asked to paint over the graffiti.
Right, we can paint over it with something positive.
That is not our request. So I have a feeling that this might derail or slow down this effort.
All right, let's, we'll talk about, I know it's late now, but I have concern about, it's not going to happen a second time.
I think we need to continue pursuing the artwork initiative.
Yeah, that's been like 5 years.
Yes, and as you can see, they're difficult under normal circumstances and not much less difficult when there's offensive graffiti.
Thank you. My last item relates to, on the 90-day plan, seeing if we can, I know that you sent an email on this, but not take the full 200 days on the 4 Courthouse Square, the HDC decision. I know we can take that, but I don't think we should.
That's not the plan to take that, and I think we'll deliver that under the time, as the email stated.
Okay, so we'll quickly move from Planning Commission back to us.
That's the plan, yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I wanted to point out one other item. No good deed, this goes under the category of no good deed goes unpunished. The Metro presentation for Rockville Station that was previously scheduled on 4/29, and the request was made, can we move it up? And the date selected was not doable. Well, when we went to go put it back on 4/29, WMATA informed us that they were not available on 4/29 anymore, and so has now moved to 5/6, and that's how it currently shows on your 90-day preview. So we actually lost a week.
Okay. That's not too far off. Any other comments on the 90-day plan? Councilmember Larry.
I'm still a bit confused. Should we be putting on, are all proclamations on the 90-day? Is this the appropriate venue for that? Because it seems scattershot. And maybe it's new ones, but no, it's not, because there's Earth Month proclamation, and I just want some clarity on that, because if we want to put them on here, cool, then we should put all of them on there, and then some of us may want to add them, but I just, any clarity there would be really helpful.
So right now, the city clerk, DCO office handles the annual proclamations that we've done in the last 3 years, and they're all in the system out to the 6 months that we normally do. So what you're seeing on there, there's more in there. It's up through June, actually. But, you know, there are times when there are a lot of proclamations in the spring. I can tell you that. So right now, you may see them being scattered, but when you get to that May and June and July, there are a lot of proclamations. And I would say, go back and look at the proclamation list that I provided to you and just look and see, but we are annually putting on all the proclamations that we have done in the past 3 years.
So just because I know we're going late, can we just resend the proclamation list, and then we can have that in comparison with the...
Sure.
And I know that HRC has a couple other proclamations they would like to recommend, and we can then talk about that, and we have a retreat coming up as well.
Sure.
Okay. Councilmember Shaw. Sorry, it's getting late.
So I did see that Harriet Tubman Day is already on there for March, so thank you. The HRC did want to update a general proclamation that we do, which was World Autism Awareness Month, and they wanted to change that to Autism Acceptance Month. This update has happened in Montgomery County, as well as a number of autism organizations. And so I did want to request that we just make that small update. And this would be for April 8th.
And it's acceptance, not inclusion. I mean, I feel like acceptance sounds like tolerating.
It is Autism Acceptance Month.
All right, anything else in the 90-day plan? You good? Okay. We are now moving to old new business, and we'll try to make sure we're out of here before 11:30. Okay, we can do this. Let's go. Councilmember Larry.
All right, I'll go. Well, I think this is a good example of maybe why we should meet a little bit more frequently, so that we don't go till 11:30. I sent an email around, I think it was last week, about a letter being circulated and signed onto by county HHS staff, and that includes social workers and other providers. They have raised some serious safety and security issues at the 1301 Picard Drive building, and they're asking the county executive, honestly, I think it's quite modest. They're asking the county to conduct a full and comprehensive security site assessment of 1301 Picard, reconfigure the single lobby entrance that includes 24-hour security with metal detectors, and 3, implement an emergency communication alert system to quickly alert staff in real time in all service areas when there has been a threat or incident. There have been many incidents, and many of them have been responded to by Rockville police as well, and I think keeping everybody safe at the crisis center is a good thing. So I would like to be able to, I have a draft I started, but I'd love to see if staff could come back to us with a drafted letter that we could send to the county executive.
Thank you, Councilmember Valeri. I am assuming that everyone is okay with us moving forward with the letter. I didn't see anything against it. Are you guys good with the letter? Can we see a draft and then we can just vote on it by 2/26?
Yep.
Is that okay, everyone? All right.
Well,
So
I assume that's been draft with potential amendments and.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, we would have chance to edit. Okay, so
Of course.
can I have a motion for Councilmember Valeri to work on a draft letter, and we will approve by actually, I don't know if we need a motion. I think
Do we
we're
need a
okay.
motion?
We're good.
I don't
But
know.
we're gonna approve at 2/26.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you for doing that. Other old new business items? Dr. Miles?
Apologies to my colleagues, I didn't get this one out to y'all. I was at a meeting of the Morehouse Alumni Association, a small HBCU from Atlanta. They're requesting a letter of recognition for they're bringing the Glee Club in town. They do it every year throughout the country just to help raise funds, but just to recognize and welcome the Morehouse Glee Club to Maryland. That's all.
I would love that. Do you know when that's happening?
That's on, they're requesting a letter by the 26th. The concert is March 21st. March 21st.
So we would need to delegate the letter drafting because they need it by the 26th, so could we approve it on the 26th?
They're asking for it by the 26th. Again, that's on me. Apologies. I just found out this weekend.
Are you willing to draft the letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Colleagues, are you open to Councilmember Dr. Miles drafting the letter, sharing it with us? And okay. That one I need a motion for because we're delegating authority. And we're not having that approved at a meeting.
Motion to, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then motion to have Councilmember Dr. Miles draft a welcome letter for the Morehouse Glee Club for Rockville for us to take a look at and approve in advance of their coming to the city.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. It's approved. Thank you, Dr. Miles. I have one item. The Wooten Acapella Group made national and was making headlines, and I'm very excited for them, but just in terms of, if we are discuss recognizing youth, we're recognizing the Richard Montgomery volleyball team from, a national achievement. I'd like to see if we could also acknowledge a certificate of recognition for the Wooten Acapella Group. Are you guys okay with that? Okay. So, Sarah, is that something that?
When is it?
They already won, so we have flexibility.
All right, we can just do it.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor Pearl. Dr. Miles.
I apologize. I didn't fully. So I'm a graduate at Morehouse. So again, I just want to disclose that for the listening public.
Is that a conflict of interest? I'm joking.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. That's all.
Yes, Councilman Valeri.
I was going to say, just to clarify, it was the sing-song competition in New York.
We'll send you a link to the information so you can have it.
It was a national competition.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to that. Councilman Valeri.
That would be cool. I want to watch it. I had 2 proclamations I wanted to put forward for consideration. One, and there is no, Councilmember Dr. Miles has not put me up to this, but March 30th is Doctor's Day, and we have a lot of physicians in the city, and I don't know that it's been recognized before by the city, so I'd like to put that forward. There are a lot of good sample ones. out there as well, but happy to assist in any way. And then the other one, and I do have a draft that I had been looking at, April 24th as Armenian and Greek Genocide Remembrance Day. I know that we recognize, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I think that this would be a very good one for the Armenian and Greek community here in the city. So I just wanted to put those two forward as ones that I had ideas, and Dr. Miles did not. We did not talk about Doctor's Day.
Thank you. Any comments on this?
I like the idea for all of the proclamations that we have put forward, and I think they're valuable. I also think that at some point we should have some sort of set of like criteria or determining factor, determine what we will put forward for a proclamation versus all of the other ways that we can recognize things that we've talked about. Just so that we can have a standard that we hold ourselves to and make sure that we're being thoughtful about all the things we bring forward.
Thank you. Councilman Valeri, can you just send us an email on those? And if you have the sample language, that would be great. And then Ms. Taylor Farrell is going to be sending us a list so that we can comprehensively look at this. And I would like to see that we have some time on the strategic planning retreat to just discuss how many, as well as some we might just post on a website and some we'll read, but we may not have to read all of them, for example. So if we could do that, we're good? Okay, thank you very much. Other comments for old new business? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, you can move. I can't move, so.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much. Happy Valentine's Day and all those celebrating different kinds of holidays this week. We recognize you and